last
okay,
week.
cool. That's
So,
good to know. Hopefully it fixed
let's
everything.
move this to see if we're on the mixer. Why is all this shit on here?
Oh yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
Mixer's
you say
on.
every week I
Let's see.
should remove most of that.
I don't know if I can delete this one.
I would
I
just
think
leave
if you
it.
click delete all, there might be more repercussions than.
See there with our
See there
webcam.
on our webcam.
You know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
good
you
job.
should probably
probably
Control
re-add
Z that bad boy.
Yeah, no, it's
Unfortunately,
probably...
I can't do that, but I can go back because now the webcam doesn't exist under posture.
Well,
Cool,
it sounds like
cool,
you
cool,
need to
cool.
add the
Yeah.
part where there's video.
This is why we don't make any
on
alterations to
Twitch.
things.
This is
before
gonna
the
be
show.
so fun next week trying to get any of this to work at my house.
I know, right?
All right, so yeah, I still need to test that shit. I need to do a hidden stream.
Yeah.
I need to get y'all like. I need somebody to watch the stream. I think I can give you a link to a hidden stream.
Yeah.
Or I'll just fucking create a secondary account that
Yeah.
I'll just delete afterwards. Okay, fuck. How do I undo what I just did?
There's probably
Okay, I just need to copy the webcam from this.
Yeah, there is copy.
It says copy filters.
No, top copy.
Okay. Copy. Paste.
There we go.
yay.
But I have to move it down because otherwise it's underneath.
Right.
There we go.
All right,
Layers.
cool.
What's with that? Why is that a thing? What's
What a thing.
that? Why do I have an artifact?
It looks like it's part of the boss room.
That's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the beginning of the animation where it slides
Yeah, you
across.
just
Yeah.
borked everything. Great.
How did I?
You
how did you really want
unanimated
things
it.
from over here?
That's
Get
why
rid
we
from over
don't do
here.
things before the show. This is also why we shouldn't go live when we're not ready
this
yet.
makes perfect sense about why they're there every week now.
Yeah.
Because he's probably just like, I'm not fucking touching it. And this week,
I touched it.
I feel
Look,
like this
touched
is
it.
my fault.
All right. Well, it's not a whole lot we can do now. We're already live, so
Yeah, it's all good.
I just.
Yep.
It's not animating.
I guess we're stuck with it.
Or I can fucking fix it real quick. Let's do that too. My glasses would be great. That's what we do for properties.
So this should be an interesting discussion this week, I think.
Yeah.
Since we're going to be talking about when video games should be kind of put down. And I tried to choose 3 articles that are basically about games that possibly should be put down, but maybe not.
Okay.
So
look, I fixed it.
we're going to be talking about
Yay.
we're going to talk about Battleborn, we're going to talk about Shenmue, and we're going to talk about Star Citizen. Because the whole Star Citizen thing has just gotten so ridiculous at this point, it has to be discussed. Like, it absolutely has to be. So,
The Shenmue game came out?
yeah, Shenmue 3 did. One that was kickstarted and raised like a ton of money, and that your reaction is exactly what happened after the game.
And
came
it
out.
is fucking disgraceful.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I remember that there was a Kickstarter for it, and then it went to like the Epic Store.
It made, like,
Everybody's cool,
25
we're
million.
canceling our pre-orders.
I think 25 million is being generous.
On Kickstarter, I think.
Oh, no, I thought you meant or I thought you meant...
No, then it got funded
yeah.
by like a real studios.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Kickstarter was huge. It wasn't Star Citizen or anything, but it was fucking enormous.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, for whatever reason, Star Citizen's still, I don't know, trucking along.
Vaporware.
It's just, they have a convention for it every year.
they just had
Yeah,
one.
you know what they don't
Yeah.
have at that convention? The
The game, right? How do you go to a convention for a game that hasn't even come out yet? It's ridiculous.
Ah,
This shit's been in like
There's-
pre-alpha for what, 7 years
I
now?
think that people that
At
are
least.
holding on to Star Citizen are just like way too.
they're
there's-
chunking money.
They're
at that
they're
problem.
they're
Oh,
so
yeah.
invested at this point. They have to have it come out.
Audio.
There are guys with like $30,000 worth of in-game items already purchased and shit. Like,
It's
I
ridiculous.
really can't wait for like the class action lawsuit against them because it's going to be everybody that invested being like, give us our fucking money, and watching that company go from like, hey, we're making a game to like beyond broke.
yeah.
And like,
I don't know. It's
mass firing will happen to everybody.
At this point, they could probably just like the head like dudes or whatever could probably just fire everyone and disappear, and you wouldn't be able
right.
to do anything
Yeah,
about
it'd
it.
Be, it'd be absolutely crazy. All right,
There's always lawyers.
ready to do this thing?
I guess so.
Yeah.
Let me mute my phone
Do that.
instead of it trying to take a picture. I love that if I press the power button weirdly, it takes a picture, but like I also hate that.
It's like, oh, look, a shortcut. Oh, I hate this shortcut.
The shortcut is not useful. Alrighty.
All right. When is it time to put a video game out to pasture? Adventurers, gear up for an all-new episode.
The intro, unless you rewrote it, slow it down.
I'm just going to slow down, yeah. I mental note
And a little
that
bit
one.
louder, because you always get quiet and really fast and quiet.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Name of my sex tape.
It's the quality content you come here for. Is
That's right.
naming your sex tape jokes.
Okay. I also have a slight problem. Why is that being told so goddamn taut?
I don't know. We'll figure it out later.
Alright, as long as nobody fucks with it in the meantime, because that is not safe.
All of that is the name of your sex tape again. With so many sentences. It all works.
Just really long sex tape. Which is also
Why is that so goddamn taut? Just nobody fuck with it, because that is not safe.
Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the show. We are the Surly Nerd, your one-stop shop for geek news that might have flown under your radar over the last week. I'm your host, James, and with me is our producer, Tony,
Hey.
and our co-host, Hector.
Howdy.
And if you're new to our show, hey, welcome. This week we're going to be talking about when it's time to retire failed games. But before that, we have all the news that's fit to rant about for your ears. Don't forget that you can keep connected with us through thesurlynerd.com. You can follow us on all social media platforms and even donate to the show. Every penny donated goes right back into the show that we make for you every week. With all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, adventurers of all ages, it's time for The Prelude.
Much better than normal.
Nice.
I mean, you can still be louder there.
Yeah, it
You
just
can still be
projects a little bit
quieter.
more.
Yeah. just turn the volume up just a little bit. But overall,
Yeah.
that was remarkably improved over the past since the last year of you doing that really fast.
Yeah. All right, this is The Prelude. This is what we've been doing with ourselves this week, what we've been playing, what we've been watching, what's been occupying our free time. We're going to do things a little bit different this week. Normally, we waste all of your time with all the wonderful things that we've been doing, and it was Thanksgiving. We did do a lot of things. But Hector came onto the show this week and wanted to go into story time a little bit for something a little bit intimate, family-related for him.
Yeah, so over the course of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this goes all the way back to 2008 with Iron Man. I've been watching these movies with my mom at some point, usually long after they're out of theaters, whenever we can stream them on Netflix, or, she comes over and I have a Blu-ray. That's how far back this goes. Mm-hmm. And up until this last Thanksgiving, we finally got to the end. We finally got to the end game, as it were. And it was a really touching moment for both of us. There's this bit where, we'd show her the movie, and my mom is very old-fashioned in the way she likes her movies. She likes her movies with lots of action or dancing or something romantic, and movies about, that take place in the Victorian era. She has a very sensible, you would almost call it an old person's taste in movies. But she loves actors like Robert Downey Jr. and Samuel L. Jackson. And when I showed her Iron Man, she goes, wow, that was really exciting. And I was like, oh, well, you just wait.
But wait, there's more.
There's more. And we kept on going. And, the first couple of Marvel movies weren't overly challenging. You had Captain America, no big deal. Thor, a little hokey for her. She's not really into monsters or anything with slime on it. But, she took it in stride. We got to the Avengers, and that's when everything really opened up for her. When she was like, oh, I think I get it now. And there have been hits and misses, and there have been some, and I can't stress this enough, that would never, ever have made it into and onto the screen with her getting to the end of it, if not for something like the soundtrack in Guardians of the Galaxy.
Right.
Or like a single hook of an actor. Things like that, like in Doctor Strange, because she liked Benedict Cumberbatch in that. So we get all the way to the end, and my mom has this huge pet peeve about movies with sad endings. No matter how profound, no matter how, earned a sad ending is. She hates Empire Strikes Back. That's how deep this
She's
goes.
like, fuck Schindler's List. I will never watch that movie.
Exactly. She just
Did Empire like fuck her up as a kid? Like, she's like, I can't do it. I can't fucking do these movies.
Maybe. We got to the end. Well, you'll get to an end of the movie like Empire Strikes Back, and she's like, nothing happened. They didn't accomplish anything. Why would they end the movie here?
I picture your mom just sitting in the back row of a theater like, fuck Titanic.
Oh, yeah. No, that would absolutely be her. Yeah, 100%. So I had a real conundrum when Infinity War came out. As you know, because you were with me, we saw it in theaters opening weekend. Huge deal. And as soon as we walked out of that theater, I was like, oh, God, I can't show my mom this movie. And over a year later, we get Endgame. And then at that point, I need to find a stretch of time about 5.5 hours long where I can get my mom to sit down and watch these movies back to back.
Right.
And I knew she'd be willing to as soon as we got to the end of the first one. So,
but she had to have that second one lined up?
Yeah,
no. If I made her wait a year to figure out what happened,
she really would never watch it.
She would have never watched it again, and she would have been pissed at me for like a week. She'd just be texting me, it's like, why did they kill Spider-Man? What the fuck? So... Yeah, so we had a chance over the Thanksgiving break. It was pretty slow for us. We did stuff with the family, but Black Friday we just kind of sat around because that's what we felt like doing.
Yeah.
She's the type that like would never go out into a Black Friday crowd, and I'm pretty much the same way. And I had both of the movies on streaming. You can stream Infinity War on Netflix, and you can stream Endgame on Disney Plus right now. So I'm like, hey, we got everything we need. And sure enough, we get to the end of the first movie, and I was very coy about what was going on. I was like, well, we have two, and we can watch them both today, but we'll see how you feel at the end of the first one. And she's like, oh, all right, no big deal. Had no idea who Thanos was. I had to, like, catch her up. I was like, remember in Thor Ragnarok when they're flying away and the big ship shows up? She's like, vaguely. Show her a YouTube clip of it. She's like, yeah, okay, I remember that. And I made sure that we watched Captain Marvel 2 days before when I got there on Wednesday, just so that she wouldn't be completely lost about that, and we didn't need the area in between.
Right.
So yeah, we get to the end. We get to the end of Infinity War, and she looks over at me, and she's like, I'm making very murdery eyes, radio people, right now. She's giving me the most murderous eyes, and she's like, the next one's like a sequel to this, right? And I'm like, yes. And she goes, okay. And I was like, oh, just so you know, it's like 3 hours long. She's like, put it in. What are you doing? Let's throw it on. Like, I'm gonna go get more wine, and we're doing this. She was strict. She was really upset. And right before I started, I was like, just so you know, I waited over a year to see this in theaters after I saw the first one. She goes, that's bullshit. And I'm like, yes, everyone thought it was bullshit too.
And there was a Spider-Man movie after that.
Yeah, so. And there was a Spider-Man movie after. We didn't get that far, but oh man. So yeah,
it was a great little experience and something to do.
Yeah, it was a really sweet experience.
I'm curious what it's been like for you watching these movies with somebody who obviously, from my understanding, not a Marvel person.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Obviously, being older, and these are not usually that type of fair movie is what she would like. But you guys have really bonded over it. And
yeah.
Have you felt like you've had to explain a lot to her, or have the movies genuinely been able to explain themselves fairly well?
They explain themselves for the most part, and I find her noticing things that I don't in them, not having to do with the Marvel Universe, but just in the way characters are playing off of each other. She finds things in, like, stuff in the background that's obviously meant to explain something I already knew to the audience. And she'll be like, oh, and I'm like, what? Oh, I didn't know that was there. Right. Yeah, and there are examples of that going all the way back to, like, Captain America, which was the one that really cemented it. She liked Iron Man, but give her a good World War II movie, and she's there.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Nice.
Yeah, so it's been a positive experience, both in terms of being able to bond with your mom and being able to see, like, I don't know, something that we grew up with, and it being put in a format that she, could understand and didn't require a bunch of lore and backstory. There wasn't you needed to read the comic for this. It was just the Marvel contained cinematic universe worked perfectly. You didn't need to watch all of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.,
right?
To do all of it. Which is a rough ride now that you talk about it, because one of the things that's being discussed is they're saying that with the advent of Disney Plus, there are shows like Loki that are going to directly tie into the new set of movies. That's what
Yeah, I
they're
mean,
doing
it's starting with like WandaVision. You're just like,
Yeah.
okay, that's throwing you into like the deep end of the film.
It's like,
Yeah. So Brooklyn asked if she understood all the convoluted time travel thing, and yes, because it's very simply explained if you don't have a crazy back history of time travel movies, which they explained very clearly in the movie. Wait, so
they explain it like 3 times.
not only do they explain it like 3 times and then Tilda Swinton graphs it,
Yeah.
just so that you understand it,
Yeah.
but they sit down and they say, wait, so Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit? And at one point she goes, is Back to the Future a bunch of bullshit? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much.
Right.
According to this movie.
Yeah, the easiest way that, like, when she, at one point she was a little bit like, wait a minute, so if someone does that then it's not going to be like when they get back? And I'm like, no, you can't affect the future by changing the past. And she goes, okay. And she was just done. And she's like, yeah, I get it.
Right. Not that convoluted.
Yeah, as long as you explain it that way, I think you're good.
Yeah. Okay. Man, so did she have I guess I got to know, like, did she have a favorite of all the movies? Like, you guys have watched almost all of them.
We have watched all of them. I'm trying to think of one that we missed.
Obviously, like
There's
Spider-Man's
22
like the
movies,
only
so it's
one.
easy to miss.
I think it might be Far From Home is
Right.
the only one we haven't seen so
Okay.
far. Oh, no, she passed on Black Panther in theaters, but we ended up watching it later. I think it was a really busy like weekend or something, and like everyone was there, and she didn't want to hit the crowds. No, we have seen all of them in one form or another.
Nice.
Except for Far From Home.
So, did she have a personal favorite that you like? Someone that you could tell she really didn't like?
She did not appreciate very much the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Everything was a little too weird for her. She liked the second one more than the first one because of Sylvester Stallone and because of Kurt Russell.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
She ended up really liking the Ant-Man movies because of Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Okay.
Actors that, she knew that she could really get into. And she had the best reaction when they would age people down. She'd be like, oh my God, it's Michael Douglas. What'd they do to his face?
And to us, we're just like, that's what he looked like young, right?
Yeah, and she's like, wait. Because to her, she didn't like automatically register that they should be much older than that. That's just how she remembers seeing them. And I mean, she's she's only like 62. She's in all of her right mind. It's just not something that would occur to her because she's seeing them in a way that she just always remembers.
She would have seen Michael Douglas age from that age to where he is now.
Yeah, and she saw
life.
that in the movie, and so like they'd show up as the current version of themselves, and she'd be like, "Oh yeah, there it is. Okay, I got you." Yeah. And the funniest one is that when she didn't notice it on Samuel L. Jackson.
Nobody notices it on Samuel L.
Yeah,
Jackson.
that was the thing. We Captain Marvel, he just shows up de-aged. And she's seen him in a lot of movies, but she hadn't seen him, I guess, probably since Winter Soldier. So... yeah, so, Samuel L. Jackson shows up and she goes, oh, yeah, there he is. And, I'm like, yeah, pretty cool what they did to his face. And he goes, huh?
It also just shows you the power of like how CGI has gone.
It has gotten so much
character?
better. Yeah, Captain America for sure.
All
She
right.
was like most of us were really undone. And spoilers for Endgame, everyone. Come on now.
It's been a bit.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. But so everyone, all of us got really emotional with the passing of Tony. But yeah, with the very end with Captain America getting to go back and like live his life, that's what she got, and she got it like I think before most people in the theater did when we watched it in theaters.
She's like, he's going back.
Yeah. He gets into the thing, and as soon as they're like, oh, he didn't come back in 5 seconds. What happened? She goes, oh, he went home, and I was like, damn, Mom, nice.
Wow.
Spoilers.
Wow, very nice.
Yeah, definitely Captain America.
So normally, like I said, our prelude is full of stuff that we've done this week. We've all been really busy with the holidays, but I really just wanted to take this time to have you tell that story because I really think we talk so much about the Marvel Cinematic Universe on this show, and it's something that not only is it something that we personally love because it's something that we grew up on, but it really is something that has managed to transcend generations. And the fact that, kids can bond with their parents over something like this. In an age where we typically make fun of the fact that, like, kids never talk to their parents anymore,
Right.
we disassociate, but this is a franchise that has brought people together and also brought families together in a way that I don't think that you would have ever thought 10, 15, 20 years ago would be possible.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just calling it the power of Disney, because our Thanksgiving, we literally sat on the couch watching the Disney Thanksgiving holiday special.
Nice.
That we've all forgotten was a thing. We literally just it just came on. We were like, fuck, all right, we're watching this now. And we had a good time. We
That
got to
sounds
watch
awesome.
people sing songs, and they showed stuff. And that's the magic of Disney bullshit. It makes you like your family.
The magic of Disney bullshit. It makes you like your family. All right, that's everything we got for the Prelude this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into our news segment in the Weekly Raid.
Hector, did you watch this week's Watchmen?
No, I'm 2 behind now.
I'm like 5 behind.
Yeah. Did everyone else, but since we didn't do it in the prelude, did everyone else marathon the movies that made us?
No, I have not.
I watched all of them in back to back.
I haven't. I'm going to this week at some point. Sit down and watch those. I think.
For last.
Nice.
I might do it tonight. Is watch those.
Yeah.
But,
I felt like I really needed Die Hard to be last.
I need someone who's
need
watched
Ghostbusters
Watchmen.
Yeah.
To talk to.
Ghostbusters.
We'll probably talk about the movies that made us next week.
Oh yeah.
Just to put it out there for
We totally should.
It'll be interesting.
I have a theory I really need to share. So
It's about butts.
It's about Watchmen and who one of the characters.
I got
I'm
you.
definitely not
Yes.
far off long to help you out with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you only watch the first episode, this character hasn't been introduced yet.
I think we watched the first 2 or 3. I'm also like an episode behind on The Mandalorian too. So.
Yeah, I'm definitely one behind on the Mandalorian.
Which apparently I need to watch the day of, or the internet will just ruin
Yeah, no, dude.
everything.
I went to so it airs on Fridays.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna watch Mandalorian later at the night. I watch it Friday night. That's my thing. I enjoy that. I got on there 3 hours. I got on Facebook just 3 hours ahead of time. I was like, hey, let's see what's on Facebook. A friend of mine posted fucking Watchmen spoilers and Mandalorian spoilers. And it's just oh, I didn't see that twist coming. And you're like, dude, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, I hate that. I really hate that. I remember back in the day when Walking Dead every week was still a thing, and your friends would just cry about something on Facebook, and you're like, shit, that's been on for an hour?
Right, could you please?
Let's have a little bit of respect if we could.
Christopher
Can I get some F's in the chat, please?
He needs to fucking not with Facebook on updating shit. It's 2 in a week. He has posted shit the moment it got done airing.
Yeah, no, I had a guy who I had to just be at one point at the bottom of one of his angry Walking Dead posts, just unfriended, and then just boop, yep, you're gone.
No, I feel like I'm gonna have to say something to him because he tries to not spoiler his posts.
Oh, but he's the worst at it.
But it's totally fucking. If you have a
it's
thought
Joey
in your head,
from
you're
Friends.
you're I know what I kind of got to really. Well, he's oh, I didn't imagine this origin story for this character. But he's really said the origin story and then the character's fucking name, and you're just cool. Thanks, because now I'm putting together all the shit that I'd figured, and I'm now I fucking got it. I fucking hate you.
The only thing I've seen a lot of GIFs with Baby Yodas in them, and I just kind of keep scrolling, get away.
All right, let's do this.
The brilliancy of the Baby Yoda gifs is that they literally can't spoil anything because it's just using a puppet as a reaction because it's just him sipping tea, and you're yeah.
Nope.
Well,
You have no context for that scene whatsoever because it's just a Muppet holding the fucking cup. You fucking Muppet. I didn't say Prelude this week.
you didn't.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't.
It occurred to me as I pointed to you, I was like, wait, I didn't say Prelude.
Nope, you didn't. It's gonna be music going into me talking.
It's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. I could just edit me going Prelude and then just cut that in there. See, now it's not. Now that fucking button's not working again.
Yeah.
I fucking hate this shit. Go over there. Click the fucking thing.
Yay.
Move the thing back.
All right.
I got a thing to push the button so I don't have to fucking move the other things. It's fucking worthless. Alright. Weekly raid.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. This is our weekly raid. It is our news roundup for the week. So last week, we ended the show talking about the future of certain technologies. Specifically, we talked about VR and the Stadia. And we kind of tried to learn from the past to see what they could do in the future. Now, since then, since our show airing, a couple great quotes have kind of come out from over at Xbox. So the head of Xbox, Phil Spencer, actually was quoted like the day after our podcast saying that the VR wasn't going to be a priority for the Xbox Scarlet, the new console, because nobody's asking for it. Like he just flat out said that, like without missing a beat. Nobody's asking for VR. Sorry, LOL.
Yeah.
And that got some positive press. It got a little bit negative press, but
it kind of turned into fanboyism.
It did. It turned into fanboyism. But there was somebody who was, instead of just being a fanboy about it, went on Twitter and talked to Phil Spencer and was very elegant and tried to have a civil discourse.
It's like,
with
hey,
him.
what do you mean by no one is wanting to have VR right now?
So this fan came on Twitter and said that it felt like Spencer was speaking very dismissively about VR and was suggesting that it's just a novelty. And then they went on to say that it should have been kind of smarter to acknowledge the successes of VR so far, leave the door open to like support VR someday, but just don't go out and say like, LOL, it's a thing.
I super do not understand that person's reasoning on this.
Well, here's the thing, and this may be a very fanboy comment to make, but the difference in this space between Sony and Xbox is one is strictly looking for what everyone wants, and the other is pushing the boundaries of mediums, trying to discover new things. And that may not be super fair, but it is a little bit apropos.
No, I mean, I just look at it as, if you're looking at Microsoft as a big company, not just the Xbox part of it, part of Microsoft is working on VR.
Oh, sure.
They are super working on VR, not for gaming, but for actual technological change.
So,
but then there's Xbox, I mean, like, we make video games, we're letting somebody else do that shit.
I want to follow up here that I feel like it's very important that we talk about the context in which this conversation was happening on Twitter, because, like I said, this was a civil discourse. This was a debate. It was a discussion. And Phil Spencer replied as such. He didn't attack the VR person. He said that's very fair feedback. And then he went into a couple of stories saying like he got to play Half-Life Alyx over the summer. He actually really thinks it's a great product and really is the future of where VR is going to be going. And he believes that VR is a pioneering piece of technology. He just doesn't want to focus on it with the Scarlet. And so what you had here is an exchange that started out with a very blanket statement, like way with his first quote that was ripped away from him, which was, the future isn't VR. And then when somebody finally had a discussion, an actual fucking discourse on Twitter, it had them actually having a true discussion on what the pros and cons of VR are, why it's not a priority for the Xbox. These things didn't become bullet points in an article that, oh, he just said fuck VR. You now understand his position and understand both sides of it, because the person defending VR was like, no, it has been advancing. It is doing things. And Phil Spencer saying, I actually do agree with you. We just need to put our finances somewhere else for right now.
Yeah, no, I see no point.
And I agree with him on that.
I see no point in either Sony or Microsoft actually bothering with VR for the next 5 or 6 years. Right, it's not there yet. It's not economically feasible. It's
to
it's
be
cool
fair,
that Sony tested the waters, but that bombed.
Well, yeah, and the thing is that Shuei Yoshida actually did make a comment towards Phil Spencer on Twitter saying that, you know, Sony sometimes does create technologies that customers aren't asking for.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, things like the Vita, things like the PlayStation VR. He was basically implying there's always a risk associated with embracing a new technology.
Yeah, look at half of what Nintendo's made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, half of Nintendo's shit is basically a failure. But the success is great. And it's good to try and push the boundaries like that. And it's good to make changes and test the waters into new technologies. But whenever you come to Xbox, they're coming off a bad last console generation where they forced people to have Kinect, which was a new upcoming technology, into their system, and it raised the price of it, which kicked them down the fucking down.
Yeah.
And it all came down, circled with them coming back with this new console. They're like, we're going to give people exactly what they said they wanted, so people will shut the fuck up. And because I imagine there's going to be some fanboy out there that's like, well, since Xbox isn't giving me a VR headset in my console, Microsoft failed again.
Nah, it's dumb.
And you're just like, no, you're a fucking idiot who doesn't understand how fucking games work. Dumbass.
I think the thing about VR is, and I think it's smart of Project Scarlet not to focus on VR. I think it would be a mistake for them to focus on it. I think it would be a huge mistake for the PlayStation 5 to focus on it as well.
And to be fair, like we should be able to point out here that the PlayStation VR has never been a up in front technology for Sony.
No,
it gets like
up there with a magic eye.
It gets 5 minutes max on stage at E3. It's like, by the way, it's still a thing that exists. You can still do it. Here's a bunch of cool games for
and
it.
It's still ridiculously overpriced.
Oh, yeah.
Even the Black Friday deals for PlayStation VR. You can get a PS4 Pro for like what was it, $250 or something
with like all the games.
Yeah,
3 games.
Well, 3 of the best games this generation.
And I get that, but the price of a PlayStation VR headset is $300.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it comes with nothing.
Nope.
Yeah.
And also has nothing to play.
Yep. And it's heavy.
Yeah. So
It's why? Like,
So
I get it's a fun, cool idea for the future, but neither one of them should be trying to go down that rabbit hole
Yeah,
for
not
at
this
least 6
generation.
years.
let's keep this Microsoft talk going for a little bit, because Microsoft also kind of came out this week and said that when it comes to the upcoming generation, of course, everybody's got to be a little boisterous before the new consoles come out.
I got more pixels, bro.
Right. Microsoft came out and said that they believe that they have an advantage with their new upcoming console, the Project Scarlet, because one factor in particular, and that's backwards compatibility.
Yes.
They are saying that because of backwards compatibility,
Calling this for years.
that this becomes a day one purchase for gamers, because you have a back library, some of which will already be up-res to use the new graphics on the Project Scarlet.
Yep. Makes sense.
And so they're saying that might be the thing that draws people to buy a Scarlet over a PS5 to begin with.
Honestly, like Project Scarlet, if you look at the backwards compatibility that the current Xbox One has, and whenever they're designing that, they're coming with a new console. Like, why don't we just make a system that makes all these games fucking future-proof, and we can just scale them and up-res them every single time? Because that makes sense, like something you would do, right? And the idea of day one on a console, I can look at my entire Xbox game library minus like 5 titles. I can just play them. I can play any fucking one of them. Or I can just download one of the hundreds of games that are on Xbox Game Pass. That is telling me that, like, day one launch title games is the complete Xbox back catalog. Nobody has been able to do that.
Nope.
Like, the closest you can get is buying a shitload of games on Steam and buying a new computer.
Right.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's it.
It's true, and I get it. It's a very bold statement to make, and it makes sense when you look at it on paper. Do I think that would be the thing that sells the system for me? That's the question. Like it's like, yeah, it's cool. That's gonna have a cool back catalog when it comes out, and I'm definitely gonna get one. But we gotta throw that first party question out.
I need to know when my Halo Infinite's coming out. Right. Honestly, for me, that's what's deciding when I get mine.
They're not going to sell me an Xbox with Halo Infinite. When E3 comes around, they'll sell me an Xbox with a really badass looking brand new exclusive title, which is why I keep buying Sony consoles, because that is always front and center when a new console
and
comes
based
out.
on the sheer number of companies that
Oh,
Xbox
yeah.
bought.
No, hopefully I'm
looking
getting
forward
one.
to at least one of those will be something you're interested in.
I think one of them will.
I'm looking forward to what Sony's
I'll be
gonna
pretty
have
disappointed if
out
they
there
don't
for the
have one.
launch games too. Like,
Oh, yeah.
Sony historically has had some weird first party titles when it comes to launch titles.
True. Like, what the fuck was Bloodborne?
And there was one for the PS3. It was this like 2-player first-person shooter, but one of the guns like slowed time, and it was really bad game where you used alien weapons. But I played the fuck out of it. It was a launch title for the PS3.
It was either Killzone or
Resistance.
Resistance.
I think it was probably Resistance.
You fought aliens with World War II guns?
Yeah, and then we got alien weapons,
Yep.
and that one slowed time because it was a sniper rifle that I liked because it would slow time. You're like, and headshot. It was fun, but the game was bad and awful.
It was a weird time for games. There was stuff like the original Prey coming out.
Oh,
and it was
yeah.
just like that was a really weird game when you thought
It was a
about
super
it.
weird time for
I
games.
love the original Prey though.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can see Scarlet. We've been saying it for a while. This year's E3 is the one to watch because this one's going to determine which console you want to pick up day one. If you're able to set fanboy aside, you can look at this year's E3, look at what's going to be coming out in that window and say, I definitively want to make a decision based on the first and third party titles that are going to be coming out for this day one.
And speaking of like day one things, we're actually very quickly approaching the 25th anniversary of the PlayStation 1.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
That's actually in like a week.
Yep.
Wow. Wow.
Or no, it's
happening.
December 3rd. December 3rd. So that's,
that's
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
So
Yeah.
tomorrow, not a week, tomorrow. So when this show goes out, this will have already maybe happened.
Yep.
Yeah, the original PlayStation went on sale in Japan 25 years ago.
Wow.
And we
Good
are now
times.
old.
Yep.
We are now old.
It's just that's so cool.
Just let that soak in. Okay.
Much like I need to in a bath full
Yep.
of salts and like
Right.
bubbles. Like I need to soak it in.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
a fifth of vodka.
Yeah.
Just to fucking process that. Okay. So we've been talking a little bit on the show about all the stuff that's been going on in China and Hong Kong, specifically with Hong Kong fighting for democracy, China not
Being
wanting them
very
to have that.
anti-democracy.
Being very anti-democracy. And there's been some controversial things that have come out of that, and I don't want to spend too much time recapping, but, we have Blizzard who had to fire a Hearthstone player because he said, liberate Hong Kong, a revolution of our time. And they rescinded that and said, okay, we'll just give you like a year of a... you just can't play Hearthstone for a year, which for an esports player is like ruining your
It's
career.
literally your entire career.
Yeah, it's a lot. So there's been so much going on in terms of pop culture, butting heads with what's been going on over in China and Hong Kong, especially because China invests so much money into American businesses. And what we're about to talk about is no different. There is a new poster for an upcoming Dark Knight series. So this is Frank Miller's Dark Knight series that he's been slowly building over time.
Yeah.
And so there's like the Dark Knight Returns and all this stuff. And now they've got the Dark Knight Returns, The Golden Child is the upcoming book. It's supposed to be coming out in November, I believe. And there was a poster that was put on social media recently. And it's a poster of Batgirl hurling a Molotov cocktail. And the text on the box, the text on the picture was, "The future is young." Right? So it's this very rebellious looking statement.
Okay.
It was just blasted all over Twitter.
That's all it was. There was no.
all it
There was
was.
no umbrellas. There was no eye patches. It was Batgirl from Frank Miller's Dark Knight series. So this is like the futuristic rollerblading Batgirl.
Yep.
She's fun and interesting.
Yeah, Carrie Kelly.
Yeah, it's her just chunking a Molotov cocktail. The future is young. That makes complete sense. Like, I get that. That's just a symbol of revolution. Revolutions happen through kids.
Yeah, they really do.
And I don't see a fucking problem with this.
Yeah.
No.
But then again, I'm guessing DC did what everybody's done so far and just bent right the fuck over.
So basically, Chinese internet users saw this picture and inferred from it that it was a Hong Kong pro-democracy protest poster. And this wouldn't have been a big deal if DC had just been like, well, it's not.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just an advertisement for our new Frank Miller
Yeah,
Yeah,
book.
you guys didn't invent Molotov
This
cocktails.
is a comic book.
No matter what you think, China,
Yeah.
you didn't invent Molotov cocktails.
The name sounds distinctly Russian.
Yeah.
But shortly after the Chinese internet users spoke up about this, the picture began getting removed from all of DC's promotional materials. It just disappeared completely. Now, the internet is what it is.
Copy save.
That picture's out there, motherfuckers, and people are now using it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
now
right.
it's a symbol of the fucking revolution
Yep.
because you bent over and let China fuck you.
Yeah.
Like, it absolutely was. And this is a really weird thing to think about because, sure, let's pretend for a minute this actually was a pro-Hong Kong, pro-democracy poster that they made using Batgirl. This is not anything different than what Frank Miller's Batman has done in the past.
Yeah.
If you go back and read Frank Miller's Batman, it is very politically charged and based on the politics of the era. The original Dark Knight Returns was based, I believe, in the Reagan administration.
Yeah.
It was very much calling out the Reagan administration.
And then whenever he did one again, it was right after 9/11, and that's when Frank Miller kind of went fucking crazy.
Yes.
And it turned into like super pro-America Batman thing.
Yeah.
And like death to anybody who isn't the same as us.
Yeah.
And it was very noticeable and not very good.
Yeah.
And frightening, honestly.
It
Whenever
really was.
you take in the history and the influence of that, of him writing and creating, drawing that character.
So it's just such a fascinating story that could have easily never made it into our news cycle whatsoever. But because DC was so quick to take down this promotional material the moment like Chinese internet protesters spoke out. Like, oh man, here we go again down this rabbit hole. We're like, fuck, like why do we have to have this discussion on the show every week about like what did America do to piss China off today that we're going to get removed because China doesn't like it?
Because we have to bend over for China anytime anybody in America does anything. I'm pretty sure this isn't China.
Yeah.
And DC can go, no, it's a comic book. This image has nothing to do with your revolution.
Yeah.
Side note, keep the revolution going. Like,
so now
there's
we just
a
got
thing with
May next to Batwoman, and
there
we go.
There's a thing with pretty much any entity, and this is true in the entire planet. With really rich people or really rich governments or whatever combination you have there, they kind of think wherever they put their money is theirs now. Think American politics, think Chinese money in the States. And that's what we slowly have to teach these people with some Molotov cocktails is this doesn't belong to you.
I'm not saying burn it all down to the ground, but like if that happened, would it be a bad thing?
Well, yeah.
And I mean, this is a complicated issue because this kind of leads into the next thing that we're going to be talking about, and that's Tencent. And Tencent, if you're unfamiliar with them, they're basically the Google of China.
Yeah.
Like that's the easiest way to describe them. They own a majority of Riot Games, Epic Games. I believe they own a good chunk of Epic Games.
I would go past Google at this point.
I'd call them the Disney of China.
They're closer to like the Facebook. I would go with more like Facebook, just the intrusiveness and the locking of people's
Tony doesn't
information.
Want you to insult Disney.
Oh
no, they're very similar to Disney in the fact that they also
in that they have their hands in literally so many
things
that are all media based.
But I go with Facebook because they literally are taking everybody's information and using it to keep track of them and do horrible things with that information.
So Tencent went out this week and actually bought about 10% of a company called Sumo Group, and this is just another video game. It's a British video game developer. And if you're not paying attention to the news, this is happening a lot. Tencent is going in and buying large shares from so many places. Of course, they have got a controlling interest in League of Legends studio Riot Games. They've got their hands in Path of Exile creator Grinding Gear Games. Of course, Supercell, the ones who make Clash of Clans. Of course, they also have minority investments in things like Activision, Blizzard, Ubisoft, Epic Games, Paradox, Funcom, Bluehold, Frontier Developments, and Glue Mobile. Think about this for a minute.
That's a lot.
This group is just quietly buying up shares of all these different media companies, whether they be movies, television, video games, one by one.
Right.
The revolution will not be televised because your Chinese overlords are making sure that it doesn't.
Yeah, and let's not forget that Tencent is not like owned by like some kindly Bezos like billionaire with a smile and a tan. It's owned by the Chinese government pretty much entirely.
And Sumo Digital is not a small company, by the way. These are the people that worked on things like Hitman 2, Forza Horizon 4, Sonic Team Racing, Crackdown 3, and they're currently working on Dead Island 2. All right.
That's a studio that does a lot of shit.
They have over 600 people working in this studio. It's one of the largest development talent pools in the world right now. And we have, this Chinese company that's coming in and just being like, yeah, we'll take a fraction of that company. Thank you very much.
10% isn't nothing to fucking laugh at.
No, not at all. That
is 1/10 of the fucking company.
That's a seat on the board. China has a seat on the board.
It does.
In those
absolutely.
companies.
But it was saying here, it bought 15 million shares of the company.
Yeah.
Just
as a person if you had a company and you had 600 people that are employed by you and you've got your board of directors to deal with and somebody comes in and says, all right, we're buying 10%, that massive influx of cash, you're like, fuck, I can do great things with that. But where is the ethics of where that cash comes from?
Yeah.
Back in the day, you had to think, like, oh, did this money come from the mob? And now you're like, oh, fuck, is this coming from a dictatorship fucking country across the world that is doing horrible things to their own people? You have to think of the ethics of where money comes from. And if you don't believe that, if you just decide to say, hey, no, it's just money, it doesn't matter, none of it matters, then you are an unethical person and I should not be supporting your entity because you, as the head of it, are making horrible choices.
Yep.
It's a complicated issue because, obviously in a capitalist society, we're trying to make money in our business no matter what. And so for a lot of companies, they just get their shares.
Yeah.
They're available online to be purchased. It's not like the head of the company had said no, sorry, no Chinese company can buy our stocks. You're on the public market to be bought.
I distinctly remember that the U.S. is currently in a trade war with China. So why don't we just make it illegal for any U.S.-based company to do business with a Chinese-based company?
Well, they're a British company, so that doesn't apply.
I mean, no, in this case it doesn't work. But like, we're not British, so like, how do we help us?
This is definitely not that kind of podcast.
How do we help the Chinese protesters if not this trade war with China, where we can be like, hey, Hong Kong protesters, here, have some fucking military weapons. Go to fucking town. Not like the last time America's done that.
This is definitely not that kind of show, so we definitely can't get that deep into it. But it's just some food for thought as you hear more and more about the name Tencent. Googling it can be very scary, just so you know.
It can be.
It's a very, very scary thing to see how much they actually control in various media outlets throughout the world. So I want to just pull away from Tencent because I was getting a little bit heated. I do want to talk very briefly go back to the subject of Batman. We know that this new Batman movie is going to be coming out called The Batman. We know that Robert Pattinson is going to be working on it. DC's in a weird state right now, and we want to go into a little bit about DC's thoughts on Superman in a later episode, but their movies obviously haven't been tracking very well. The Joker was very fiscally successful, and so if we know anything about Hollywood, it's that when they see something that works, they hop onto that trend and they want to ride that thing through. So what DC's kind of discussing right now is that the new upcoming Batman movie, The Batman, is going to literally show us the inside of Arkham Asylum within the movie, and that there will be various villains that we may or may not see within Arkham Asylum while Batman's briefly there. This
has been an ongoing thing in the comic books and the animated stuff.
Yeah.
Anytime Batman walks through the Arkham Asylum, you get to see a nameplate that says Joker, and he talks for a second, or you see Penguin, and he's going, meh, because that's what he does. And you got Riddler, who's over there like scratching the fucking walls and stuff, and then you go through and you get the labyrinth of enemies.
I was really thinking he was like, there's Catwoman licking herself.
Yeah.
That's where I thought you were going with that.
No, you fucking weirdo.
So the idea behind this scene that's going to be put into the movie is that every door that you see in Arkham Asylum or any villain that you see has the potential at that point to become a spinoff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the way we look at it in a Marvel movie. Like, oh, this dude showed up getting their own movie.
Yeah, so they don't know if this movie will be successful or not, obviously, because there's been a lot of crap.
Right.
But they want to basically make this the center point for any branching movies that would come out of this.
So if they're going to do a Suicide Squad, maybe they should introduce all of the people inside of Arkham that are part of that.
Right.
There's literally a movie coming out. And it has already happened.
So they keep doing this thing where they're trying to force a universe out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the thing about the Joker. The Joker worked very well and was very good in that it didn't use or need any of the rest of the universe. And it would be nearly impossible to create anything out of it that branches into the DC universe.
If you changed 2 words in the Joker movie, if you changed Gotham to any city.
Chicago.
Yeah, change it to Chicago, and you changed Wayne to Jones. Mm-hmm. Exact same movie, makes the exact same amount of sense, has nothing to do with the DC universe, has nothing to do with fucking Batman.
Right.
It is a story about a dude who's not okay.
And my comment has nothing to do with whether or not that was a good or bad thing. I think it really worked for the movie.
Yeah, as a standalone film, it's fucking brilliant.
And that's all I'll say about that part of it. This is not this place for the discussion for that. But the thing is that if they move forward trying to replicate that with other DC villains, that's not going to go well. Like, I don't see any universe in which we get a story about Selena Kyle the thief.
They tried that once.
Yeah, no, they tried that. But that was fuck, my microphone just fell. Still doing it.
Quit touching it.
I tried moving it so I could talk to you better.
How'd that work out?
Apparently horribly. All right, what was I saying? No, they've tried that before with the failed Catwoman movie, but that was before they have examples of genre films being part of multiple genres. Which, honestly, we're going to use Marvel for the incomplete example of this, where you can take a character like Catwoman and then put her into a burglar, thief, Thomas Crown Affair kind of movie and have it make sense now.
Right.
We have the basis. We know how to do this. Look at Mandalorian. It is a fucking Western in Star Wars.
And to be fair, they kind of did that with Wonder Woman, making it a World War II movie.
I mean, they tried and then botched the ending so badly that you just kind of wanted to leave the theater and yell.
But yeah, this is one of those things where the reason I wanted to bring it up because Hector, you were hitting on something in particular there. DC's biggest problem is that they keep trying to put the cart before the horse. And the cart for them is this multiverse of characters doing all these things. And we need to do what Marvel did, but in reverse. We need to start with the Avengers and then go individual after that. And they seem to be having this approach where they want to do that, but it doesn't work like that.
No, it really doesn't.
If it did work like that, then maybe DC wouldn't be in such bad shape right now.
Yeah.
They're not spending time with individual characters. Instead, they're wanting to make, the Justice League first and then say, okay, now the Flash gets his own movie. Well,
now Aquaman gets his movie.
Right.
Which was okay.
I think the thing is that it's the thing about Marvel heroes and not their villains is that it's fun when the heroes interact. It's not fun when DC heroes interact. No one gives a fuck.
It's super angsty.
And
it's
even
Batman brooding, Superman being like, I am God, and Wonder Woman being like, I could kill all of you.
Yeah.
And it's all the interaction is.
Yeah,
and then the Flash being quippy.
And then the Flash is quippy, and Aquaman is like, why am I
Entirely
bothering?
useless. In the movies, he's not entirely useless, but traditionally entirely useless.
Yeah, so I think the problem is that the Justice League just isn't very fun.
It's true.
They've never been fun. They're not fun in the comic books either.
And that's why the
They're
Suicide Squad...
douchebags that hang out in space.
Suicide Squad could have been something, because it's fun when DC villains interact, and maybe James Gunn will break that formula and bring in something cool. But it's just, I don't care if the Aquaman and the Flash don't get along.
Honestly, that gives me an idea for why these don't work. Honestly, and it comes down to the where the guys where they hang out. Where does Justice League hang out? Space.
Yeah.
Where do the Avengers hang out? They got a couple different places all over the Earth, but they hang out on Earth. They party together. They hang out. They have a good fucking time.
Yeah.
Literally, when you have these godlike beings hang out in space that aren't part of humanity, how are you supposed to relate to them?
Well,
how are they supposed to be
I think the biggest,
part of us?
The biggest scene that really solidifies it for a movie that most people don't like. So I want to talk about Age of Ultron real quick.
Yeah.
There's that party scene in Age of Ultron. Think about that scene.
Wonderful
where
scene.
It's
So
just them sitting around having beers and talking and just BSing. And there's a lot of character development that happens in that
there is.
5 to 10 minutes of that party scene. I mean, you've learned characters' backstories, like where'd Pepper go, where'd all these things happen. Think about that scene and just try and put the members of the Justice League in there. Can you picture that? Nobody would have a good time.
You can even put Cyborg. No, Cyborg would be the worst.
Yeah, Cyborg is
Cyborg
not
would be
fun at a
super the
party.
worst.
Do you know why freaking Legends of Tomorrow is such a brilliant show? Everybody is down
everybody
to earth.
at a
Because those
party.
characters are all super fun.
Yeah,
They're already party people.
Yeah.
They're there to have a good time and save the universe and, generally sleep
And
with
they
everybody.
also realize how ridiculous they all are.
Yeah.
They're
No.
fully aware of how ridiculous
What's my
they
power?
are.
I got a suit that shrinks real small.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's
not
got
Ant-Man, but,
it's got lasers, but we don't use them.
Constantine, what's your power? I fuck everything.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's relevant.
including the timeline.
Yeah.
Including the time. That's Barry's job. Barry's job is to fuck the timeline.
And I can talk to Satan.
I
guess.
literally sent a video to Hector today that was a history of Crisis on Infinite Earths that actually explains that the whole multiverse theory in comic books started with the Flash.
Yeah. I saw that. I was gonna watch it a little bit later.
It is so good, but you're also like, Barry.
But it's nothing new that I didn't already know. Flash always fucks the timeline, and if those are the fun stories that we had, let's just call the movie "Flash Fucks the Timeline" and do little asterisks and shit on the word "fucks" and just go with it. Make it fucking PG-13 Flash movie, because they're not going to do a rated R one for the Flash.
Yeah.
But do a fucking PG-13. Think America Pie goes through time travel. Fucking ridiculous ass coming of age story for the Flash, where he's just going through different timelines because maybe he's discovering how his powers work, and he keeps getting thrown back and forth with different timelines and how he's trying to deal with them, and then he accidentally tries to fuck his mom or something, just calling out Back to the Future again, and we see how it goes. I think that it would be interesting and fun to experiment in those ways, but not in these get a brooding bunch of people together to brood in the darkness and be broody, and then have a dude who's the most angst hole of all time show up and be like, I deserve this rock, give me the rock, and everybody we don't got no rock, motherfucker, and then a war happened for some fucking reason. By the way, I'm trying to explain Justice League. I think that's the plot.
That's pretty close. Yeah.
So we are going to have a thorough discussion specifically about Superman soon. So I don't want to sit here. And,
that's the reason why we didn't touch on him. Like none of us talked about Superman at all because that's a whole other bag.
That's
of beans.
a whole other thing we're going to be talking about over the next couple of weeks. So let's just put a pin in that. Real quick as we start to wind down the news. Really fun update right around the corner for Super Mario Maker 2. Ooh. By the way, it's going to be released on December 5th. They're going to be putting in this patch. They're going to be putting in the sword from Legend of Zelda. If Mario picks it up, he turns into Link.
Ooh.
And he gets all kinds of like cool Link powers, can do all kinds of cool Link things.
That was my next question. Is like, does he just change graphically, or does it like a whole?
Nope.
Has new powers like can throw swords,
shield deflects things, sword
like,
can shoot.
Yeah, shoot. Like that always bothered me about like Link in Legend of Zelda games. Like, how does the sword throw like that? That doesn't make any fucking sense. That's not how swords work. Arrows, I get the arrows. You shoot the arrows. You don't shoot
by all
swords.
Means, gun blades.
Oh yeah,
but by all means, gun blades.
Okay, that's later on down the line. If we're going to like the history, like kind of the RPG genre, you got to start the beginning area, which is more along Legend of Zelda. Why does shooting swords happen?
Cool. So I got nothing. I will answer that question with probably whatever makes giant octopi live in forests and throw rocks at you.
Yep.
Yeah, true.
So really,
like Mario, I totally get. There's some turtles hanging out, some mushroom people, and some weird egg-looking fuckers.
Everybody just high as shit.
Some of the turtles fly.
Yeah, it's weird. The sun's angry and attacks you, which is true for real life.
Brooklyn is saying that in Breath of the Wild they actually explain the sword thing. So.
Yeah, I'm not going to go out of my way to play another one of the shitty games.
But yeah, I'm excited about this because it's cool to see Mario Maker just getting so much content from Nintendo. It wasn't just a throwaway title, almost like the first one was. The first one was good. It just
I feel like the first one was made by one guy, and they were like, "Oh, that's cool. Just release it."
Yeah.
I think.
And this was actually a team of people made this game.
Yeah. The thing about Mario Maker is my favorite part about the entire game is the speedrunning community creating levels and challenging each other with them.
Ridiculous.
Oh, they're so great.
Apparently,
it's terrifying to watch some of those levels.
Part of this new patch that they're going to be putting in the 2.0 patch, they're going to be doing something called Ninja Speedrun Mode, and basically there's going to be courses that are created by Nintendo, and with the Ninja Ghosts are, is what they're calling them, is the ghosts will like run through the level optimally.
Oh, okay.
And like you're trying to beat the ghost to get to the end of this.
It's a task bot run, and you're trying to get close to it.
This is like a Gran Turismo where they had a ghost mode.
Yeah. Like any racing game. But yeah, that's the idea of it. You're playing.
Not all racing games have ghost mode.
It's speed. It's a speed run community thing that Nintendo embraced and said, why don't we just put that at the forefront?
I'm really happy that they're doing things like that.
Yeah.
If they could just get on the A/B button switching, I'd be fucking loved. I'd be so happy with them.
So, in sad news, I know that we've all been talking for a while that we've been wanting to see a Diablo 2 remaster. BlizzCon kind of came and went, and we said, hey, man, like, you had Diablo 2 on the stage. Like, where's my Diablo 2? So, some of the heads over at Blizzard finally came out about that. They were, after all the big backlash they got about, like, where the fuck's Diablo 2 remastered? And they were very honest and said, so, guys, here's the thing. We kind of lost most of the source code for Diablo 2.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
So it will either take a very long time to redo it, or it's going to have to be done from scrap, or maybe one of the boxes in the back that we just haven't unpacked may have the original source code. And if this seems weird to you, by the way, this is very common practice in the video games industry, or was for a very long time. Once you got done with the game, you got it pressed and you sent it out. That was the end of it. You didn't need the source code anymore. What would you need it for? The game.
Why would I need this ginormous ass multiple hard drives of shit hanging around for when I can just reuse those hard drives for the next thing that we're working on?
Exactly. Yeah. And so it's sad because it's a piece of video game history that's lost, and we can only hope that they'll be able to kind of recoup this. I mean, we've heard stories about this kind of stuff all the time. You know, a collector buys a box of CDs and finds like the original StarCraft data sitting around, and they're like, "Hey, Blizzard, do you want this?" And like, "Oh shit, we absolutely want this. We will buy it."
Didn't that happen? It was either StarCraft or like Warcraft. Somebody actually just found it and
and then like
a garage sale box.
They just gave it back to Blizzard, and Blizzard was like, "Okay, so we are
here. Have lots of things.
Here have all the things." And I gave them like past a BlizzCon, like I think paid for their hotel room. Like they're just like, "You're a saint to us." Like, thank
so
you.
if anybody has sitting out there
the source code for Diablo 2, for the love of God,
just maybe give it back to them, and
they'll pay you some
it.
serious money for it. Yeah.
And I mean, this wasn't just it was a CD in the back room. The people behind Diablo 2 did come out about this, saying that there were assets that were lost, and were like what they called fatally corrupted, like in the last days of Diablo 2. Like Diablo 2 was like shipped, and like they went to go grab the source code that they'd been working on for so long, and they're like, oh shit, it's all gone. Like just giant holes of data that were just gone.
Somebody compiled something wrong,
right?
And it ate some things,
and ate something,
and then none of it works anymore,
right?
Yeah.
So you had the final version of Diablo 2, but no way to reconstruct it unless you did it from scratch.
Yeah, and this is that. So while none of us are game developers,
right?
We do slightly understand the way the game development world works, and this is definitely a time where. You didn't have multiple backups or multiple layers of redundancy to keep things. You didn't have like a safe place to play, and then you didn't have like these multiple layers.
You didn't have a cloud backup.
You didn't have cloud backup. You didn't have your like A level testing area. B levels is a save state. C level is another one.
Yeah.
I mean, they literally came out and the devs were talking about this, saying that the Diablo 2 code that they got together after they lost everything was compiled from shit that people had at home.
And that's what happened with Toy Story.
They went to all their employees and said, all right, guys, who has the Diablo code at home so we can try and like salvage this game?
Yeah, no, I think it was the original Toy Story. They were Pixar was going to render. So it means like, hey, we're done with the movie.
Yeah.
It's time to render this thing like completely, and that's basically the going to gold. It's time to print it.
Yeah.
And they lost it. Thankfully, someone took the entire fucking film in its test phase home with them to work on something, and they went, "We have one copy, so let's not break this one.
Let's send an armored car to that guy's house."
I remember this story because we were working through that story. We may or may not have been working at companies associated with all these things. So our last little bit of news for the week, and of course we have our main topic, which is going to be really cool. I think you guys are going to enjoy it. But our last discussion for the week is about Google Stadia. So we talked about it in our previous episode when we were talking about failed technologies, but now we need to talk about the Stadia launch itself, because what we're hearing from people that are actively using the Stadia is that there's a lot of games that aren't running to their truest potential, right? They're supposed to be 4K, they're supposed to be 60 frames per second. All these things that Google Stadia touted that was supposed to be there day one is suddenly not working. And before we get too much into this, I do want to preface with the fact that we did have one of our listeners, Almost, who has been giving us feedback on the Stadia, gave us a buddy code.
Yeah, which I've been playing a bit of Destiny on Stadia, but not on console or not on my phone, because apparently Bluetooth doesn't work on my phone that has Bluetooth.
Yeah.
Huh.
But amazingly, xCloud works with Bluetooth, so I can just use my controller and play xCloud, but I can't do the same thing to get Stadia to work.
Right. So
Gotcha.
special thank
That
you
makes no
to Almost for giving us the code for the show.
Oh, Stadia, you're so
we're all
broken.
testing it out, trying to get a better understanding of how it works.
So far, I've enjoyed it. Like, before we get into this part, I was going to say that I have been playing a little bit of Stadia. It is enjoyable. It is a very promising future. I can see the benefit from it. But having played xCloud specifically on my phone and going other places with it and testing on like a not ideal environment and seeing that it's a bit laggy, and then testing Stadia in an ideal environment, and it works pretty well. I could say it's the halfway point between a PlayStation 4 or Xbox One, the regular base versions, and PC. Right. It is not as good as the higher up versions, and it is not near as good as the PC version. But it's like it's comparable to an entry level console.
Okay, that's good to know. So the big issue that a lot of people are having with the Stadia is that it just isn't promising what's on the box. They're saying obviously with the features that are missing in it, the games aren't running what they should be running. But the bigger point to this is that Google came out this week and said flatly, none of this is our fault. It's completely the developer's fault that they haven't optimized their code to run on Stadia. Stadia works perfectly. Nobody pay attention to the man behind the curtain.
Right. Right.
That's putting a lot of blame on the developers.
And they are. And I feel like that's a bad...
Oh, no, that's really bad. That's a
PR move.
That's a bad choice for Google.
Right. We've all seen what happens to game companies when they shit all over their third-party developers, which is all that Stadia has.
Right.
They're not making any first-party games. So And also found this out about Stadia is that they have, in a lot of cases, their own version of the games, usually with the video option stripped out because they decided what the perfect way is to run that game on their own. And you are not allowed to switch any of that.
I kind of get that because you have to run it in the most ideal way for their network to function.
Right. So
they need to get rid of things in some cases, limiting the graphical capability of certain things, like lowering a field depth detection for foliage to medium instead of high.
Yeah, no,
because it just makes it better.
I got that for sure. The thing about that is, if you ask the developer to make a most optimized version of a game to run on Google Stadia, and then it comes out, and Google Stadia advertised that game or their games as running at 4K at 60 FPS, and none of that is even remotely happening because the developer tried to make it run on fucking Stadia, and then Stadia comes out and throws that developer under the bus after doing that work to try and make the game run smoothly.
That's really literally throwing the developer under the bus.
It's basically gaslighting the audience and shitting on their business partners.
And that's another thing that really gets to me because when I was touting how great backwards compatibility was.
Yep.
And that was because Microsoft came on the stage and said, "Hey, developers, we're adding more backwards compatibility. We're doing 99% of the work for you. You just literally have to come and like sign some papers and work with us for like 2 days.
Yeah.
And then it'll work. And if it doesn't, we will figure it out, not necessarily you." That to me, that's the right way to handle a situation like this. Like, we're going to put all this stress on ourselves because this is Google. This is the big monster that's supposed to be doing the things, right? And when it comes to how you handle your companies that are working with you, you don't generally try to, throw them under the bus like this. You should be the bigger person, the bigger company saying, "We are going to fix this to make our developers' lives easier."
Yeah. This feels like a move that it's going to cause so much bad blood between third-party developers and the Stadia. If they're going to feel like from day one of the launch of this thing, Google just points the finger and says, "It's all their fault, guys. Be angry at them."
The tens of games that we have is entirely developers' fault why it doesn't work.
Yeah, imagine if, a AAA game came out for the, a PlayStation 4 and it ran like shit and Sony came out and just publicly said, "Looks like that developer sucks ass." I mean,
we actually had a comparable thing for this because Red Dead Redemption 2 came out on PC.
Oh yeah,
and true. I think even right now still doesn't work.
Not very well. There are still plenty of problems.
Very, very specific PCs doesn't actually function on, but that's a case where it is entirely the developer's fault.
Yep.
They're not the one. They're not putting it out on another platform. They're not having to have this online connectivity that's Steam's fault or something. It's literally the game don't run on hardware for literally we don't know why.
Yeah, but Epic isn't coming out publicly saying, "Man, Rockstar, you guys suck."
Yeah,
sounds like
it's Rockstar coming to be like, "Yeah,
get your shit together.
We fucked this up somehow."
The Epic Store is amazing and perfect, and Rockstar must be terrible.
That was sarcasm.
It's a complicated issue, but all we're hearing right now is that Stadia is doing more and more and more to burn bridges, and it's going to suck because if they continue to act this negatively towards their third-party developers aren't going to give a shit to sell their games on their platform.
Right. It's not like Stadia is doing any work to convert these games for them. Or we don't even know if they're even giving them a lot of help in optimizing them for Stadia.
No, I know I only know one case.
Right. So why on earth would a developer be like, "And there's a Stadia version"?
Okay, so
why did we do that?
One of the things that they touted at the very beginning of Stadia was that Destiny 2 was coming to Google Stadia, and it was going to be this place where you can play wherever the fuck you want on this game, which is really fucking popular. And we do know that Google came to Bungie and worked with them in the studio for like 6 months to get it to where it is right now.
Right, but that was a flagship game.
Yeah, so that's the flagship game, though. That is the one that they were selling it on. Honestly, that was the one, if you were going to convince me to buy a Google Stadia, you had to, where's that?
But to be fair, like if I'm saying like, "Oh, I need to sell this dildo," if I'm going to sell it to Tony, let me slap a Destiny logo on it and like, "Oh, Tony's going to buy that dildo now."
Hey, don't threaten me with a good time.
Yeah, for real.
So it just really sucks.
At this point, I know Hector's kind of getting there too. I've seen how long he's been online.
Oh yeah.
So with that, we are going to talk about Destiny some more. So just hold on, guys. It sucks that Stadia is doing this to their developers. I really hope that they either retract their statement or at least start working with them a lot more closely. So
I think at this point, the damage is done. You can't retract that. You have to now make a stride to show that that is not what your intent was.
Well, maybe the whole Stadia team is like, man, I really miss working on the, fascist facial recognition software department. Those guys got way better weekends. Let's maybe just act like assholes and they'll shut down Stadia sooner so we can go back to working in the dark.
All right.
Honestly, this is Google. That sounds about right.
That's everything that we have for the news this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into our main talking point for the podcast in the Bosch room.
Yeah, I wasn't sure why you were getting up because it's like I know we're about to be done.
It was just it had been a long news segment.
Yeah, it was. No, I was gonna get up and get one, but I was like, we're about 5 minutes away. I can wait.
I really needed a beer though. I'm glad you did.
All right, let's do it.
All right, you're not fucking working again. Why? Why? Stream Deck, do you fucking not function?
I think it's because you started editing it.
No, it always does this. It's doing the same
Every
thing.
week, every
I click
week
titles. I go titles. Like, okay, cool. And then
It was
Boss
working when I got here. That wasn't even a whole 2 hours ago.
So this worked earlier, and live worked. Let's see if dog works. Dog doesn't fucking work.
No, dog hasn't been working all night.
And it does this on days where I don't fuck with it. It just decides to not fucking work anymore.
The emoji's legs are broken too. Can't make it to the screen.
It's so annoying. I want to stand up and like stretch for a second.
Yeah.
I've been sitting like to the side for.
Hello, audience. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, how's everyone doing? Zach isn't showing up in normal chat.
Yeah,
He's only over there.
It does sometimes.
Well, no, it's over here. Tony growing sword is part of puberty journey.
Yeah. So the
Okay, I missed that statement. Okay.
yeah, Diablo 4 is the Diablo 2 remaster, and honestly, when it comes to stuff like this, how about it works for
See,
James?
Now it's fucking working.
Yeah,
I just had to touch it.
yeah. The what is it? Where was I going with that? Yeah, why don't they just like have a guy playing Diablo 2 and have a guy coding Diablo 4 and be like, tree there, there's some grass, there's some of those goat dudes. Let's throw in some
You really don't know how coding
throw in
works.
some goat dudes. I assume it's a lot like RPG Maker.
Insert goat dude 3 feet. Like,
Okay.
that's not how this works at all.
Diablo is
like,
absolutely made like RPG.
42 goat dudes around like a bigger goat
I don't need to know
man.
your fetishes on air, man.
No,
Well-
I want to see this coding language that Hector's invented. Insert
Okay.
32 goat men around big
Whoa,
tree,
wow,
big tree
God.
infield this
Okay,
size.
small anecdote. Very quick anecdote.
About fitting 42 goatmen in you?
Yes. So I was playing Diablo 2 in high school. I had a girlfriend at the time. I'm on the phone with her talking to
Not
her.
after 42 goatmen, you didn't.
Yeah.
You don't know what she
We're
likes.
on the phone and we're just talking like you do when you have a girlfriend in high school, and I'm sitting there playing, and I think I'm a what am I? Probably a paladin. Whatever had a mace.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it didn't sound like a sword swing. It sounded like a club clock. And it was like squawk clock. And there were these goat dudes that go meh when they die. And so all she heard while we were talking was clock meh, clock meh. And she's like, "Are you spanking goats at your house? What is happening?" And I'm like, and I just like, and I laugh about it while I keep doing it. And so it just keeps happening. And she's just like, "Oh my God, I can't with you and the spanking goats." And yeah, it became a whole thing.
Spanking Goats is the name of the
Spanking goats is the name.
I'm
of
literally
my
going to log
sex
into your
tape.
Steam account later and change you to Goat Spanker.
Goat Spanker. It's your new Destiny name. Spanker.
No
of
more
Goats.
Mr. Parker. You're now Goat Spanker.
Goat spanker, Mr. Spagoats.
Hi, everyone. What a wonderful evening we're all having. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about games that suck.
Yeah.
Oh, already?
Oh, that's a flavor change.
Yeah.
What'd you go over to?
The APA.
Swifty.
Swifty's not bad.
I like
it's still
Swifty.
it's still a little bit hoppy. It's not near as hoppy as this fucking Imperial IPA though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
those Lone Rangers will get you.
Yeah, that'll wreck your
I like
life.
the Juicy Haze one,
Yeah.
but
I've been real into the hazies lately.
I like the juicier IPAs. I think it's got more citrusy. You got more of that tart, that little,
Yeah.
the cheek pinch in it.
Yeah.
But not. I still fucking hate sours. Sours are the fucking worst.
All right, here we go.
Boss Room.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. This is our Boss Room. It's our main talking point for the podcast, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. So this week we're going to be talking about pulling the plug on failed games. So this week I want to dive into the subject of when it's time to shut game projects down. Now, we should note here before we go any further into this talk, none of us, 0% of the people on this panel are game developers.
That's right.
If you are watching us live on twitch.tv/TheSillyNerd, you would have heard some wonderful anecdotes about how we are definitely not game developers.
Nope. Most of it is just placing goats to be spanked.
Welcome to what the live show is like. So we're going to be speaking purely from a fan perspective, but if anybody out there in internet land is a game developer and you want to talk about this subject a little bit, please reach out to us because we would love to kind of chew your ear about what we're about to talk about because this is, again, from a very fan perspective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you 3 headlines that came out this week that inspired the discussion that we're about to have. The first one is that the game Battleborn will be shutting down its servers January 2021. This was a game that came out. It was done by Gearbox. It was called Not Overwatch. It originally came out on a disc or a downloadable title. Quickly became free to play. And apparently he's had a very, very small, like 5 people maybe still play it fan base. But it does exist. People are still occasionally.
I'm guessing there's a couple hundred diehards in the world that really like Battleborn.
Yeah.
It was a game that whenever they first announced it, we're like, that's really interesting. Like it graphically looked very cool. It had an interesting kind of story thing, but it just fell in a time where I was just doing other shit.
Yeah.
So I just never got into it.
I was doing Overwatch.
Right. I was doing Overwatch. Or if you weren't doing Overwatch, you were playing Paladins.
Yeah.
So, I mean, those were very respectable titles. The second headline that I wanted to bring up is the fact that Shenmue 3 has come out.
Huh?
And yeah, it's coming out.
I literally, before the show started, that we were like, okay, this is what we're going to talk about. And James said Shenmue 3 came out, and I went, oh, did it? Like, I was like, I didn't know that actually had happened already. I completely fucking forgot that was a thing that was going to happen.
So Shenmue 3 came out and did not sell well. This was a game that raised a whole lot of money.
We talked so much about this because it had the Kickstarter.
Giant Kickstarter.
And then how it had to do the Epic's game bullshit and people were upset about it.
People wanted refunds because it was only coming out on the Epic Store instead of being able to get it on Steam, etc.
Which is what they initially said that they were going to.
It raised something like, you said, $25 million?
$25 million, I believe, was the Kickstarter before it started getting funded and by other companies.
The remasters of Shenmue 1 and 2 have sold more than Shenmue 3 has.
Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, those came out relatively recently, the remasters.
And let's not forget, Shenmue 2 is a bad game.
Right.
They were good remasters, though.
This is insane to think about, that a game that was that so many people backed, that so many people were excited for, came out and just was garbage. It was just hot garbage by all accounts. Now, the last headline that ties into this entire discussion that we're going to be talking about is Star Citizen. Literally the game that we have been talking about since the inception of our podcast. Like episode 5 of our podcast, we talked about Star Citizen.
You guys are probably so excited.
That feels not correct.
I was very excited about Star Citizen. I was like, fuck yes, this game Star Citizen. I can't wait for it.
I was really looking forward to possibly, because it was from the dude that made the other
Wing Commander.
Wing Commander, and I was like, awesome. So Star Citizen does well. We can get like a new Wing Commander movie series where we can get
seems like a bit extreme.
Yeah, Freddie Prinze Jr. is coming back.
I want to get Freddie Prinze Jr. and what's his name back together, and they could start playing Wing Commander stories again.
For the record, by the way, and I do not want any of you to go back and listen to our past episodes. I'm
going to delete them, and the next time we change things, I'm going to start at like episode. Let's say 250.
Don't
nothing past that will exist.
But I do want to inform you that this argument that Tony's having about why he wants Star Citizen to exist for Wing Commander literally was the same discussion that was happening in 2012. So Star Citizen,
I still want it just for that.
was a crowdfunded game. It started off as supposed to be just a single player Wing Commander experience. It was supposed to be the new Wing Commander. That was the whole point. And it raised a whole lot of money, like a ridiculous amount of money, very quickly. And then throughout the years, we never got to see any more of the product. We kept getting hints. Suddenly, it's no longer just a single-player game. Now it's going to have a multiplayer component.
Yep.
Now the multiplayer component's an MMO. Now the MMO is going to be like you only have one life, and it's kind of a Dark Souls-esque roguelike, your things get passed down to the next person in your lineage kind of thing. Think of what EVE Online is. It's a little more hardcore mode.
Yeah.
it became all these things. And if it sounds like we're stumbling over what Star Citizen is supposed to be, it's because we don't know.
I literally didn't even know they had added that shit.
Star Citizen is stumbling over what Star Citizen.
No, I remember that they had added a racing game element to the ships.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, that's actually kind of cool. I would like to see where this goes. They added a first-person shooter element, like single-player first-person shooter element to it. And then they had the open world, like space navigation part, which was the Star Citizen part of it. And it was... They were like, we're going to keep adding more stuff to it. And now they're adding in this, like, your characters have, children upon children and do this other thing. I'm like, no, I want one, just choose fucking one.
Yeah.
But you get one game. Stop making all the games.
Star Citizen, a game that hasn't even officially launched, all right? It has basically betas behind it right now.
No, it's not even betas. I think that all the tests are still pre-alpha.
Yeah, they're all pre-alpha.
Just hit this week. $250 million in crowdfunding.
Okay, so to compare that into an idea, because it's the only thing I know for the budget of games, was that Activision and Sony gave Bungie $500 million for a multiple games and multiple years contracts.
Yep.
And that lasted, I think, about like 6 years before they bought themselves out. So that was basically a 10-year contract. It was 500 million. So this is, let's just cut that in half. 5 years of active game ongoing development that they should be paying for at the level that is a AAA big ass studio.
Right.
$9 million came just this last November, right before CitizenCon.
Who the fuck has $9 million and didn't give it to me and gave it to this fucking game that's never coming out? I would like to make a game that never comes out.
It'd be
and I would
awesome.
be well off with $9 million.
I want to inform our audience a little bit about Star Citizen. I just wanted to educate a little bit before we dive into all of this. If you're wondering how a game that doesn't exist makes all this money, basically as they're building the game, they come out with different ships. And some of these ships are ships that you can only get in a limited time. It's like from January to May, we're going to create this ship, and you can buy it for $250, and you will get it when the game launches, but you will be the only person that has that ship because it's a limited resource within the game.
No, this is the most brilliant idea that ever come out of any games ever. They created the real money store for cosmetic items and never made a game.
Yeah.
They are literally just being like, they're just showing you a picture of what it might look like, which you can hire like a shitload of artists off Fiverr
to be fair,
make this shit for you.
All the ships that they have said they're going to be making have launched, and that during their free weekend, you could actually get on and play in all these ships. Now, some of these ships are ridiculous. Some of these ships
so it's not completely a scam.
It's not completely a scam. But
demo.
We're talking about like there are ships that are like, hey, here's a little like hover trike that goes around the world, to literally like Star Destroyers from Star Wars. You pay like $2,500, I think, for one of these things.
Jesus Christ.
And it literally is a ship that you buy to house other players.
It's a city.
It's a city, essentially, that you launch. You basically run a part of the universe out of this ship that you bought for $2,500.
Okay, so this is a really cool idea. Like on the surface, the idea of someone can build and or purchase a giant Star Destroyer ship where, hundreds of players can visit as a hub, and you're the fucking mayor of Hubsville, and that's the thing. But the game has to eventually come out to amount of players, and that number of players has to be more than 5.
Right.
And I mean, at minimum, to keep this thing going.
Right.
And if we take things like Battleborn, for instance, a game that had a lot of investment, yes, it wasn't $250 million. I'm guessing probably closer around $75 million went into that game. That's just a number out of my ass, but I'm probably pretty fucking close based on how we've learned about the game industry. So it's considerably less, but not enough players to keep it alive for more than, what, like a year and a half?
It came out in 2016.
2016, so okay, less than 3 years or 4 years that this game, $75 million. So that means for $250 million, this game needs to be around for quite a while at its current cost when it's released, to be able to make up and retain that player base, even if it's only 500 people doing it.
Right.
Are you that person that spent $2,500 on this stupid fucking ship where you could house people, and guess what? Literally no one's playing this game.
Yeah.
Do you feel like a jackass who could have given that money to me and I would have done nothing and you would have gotten the exact same results.
Okay, so there's these 3 headlines that I put into the news segment or the boss room for this week, and that was Battleborn being shut down, Shenmue being a failed Kickstarter essentially, and Star Citizen raising over $250 million over the course of not actually making a game. So when we take these 3 headlines side by side, just off the top of your head, what do you think about as you see them next to each other?
Overall, I look at it as this shitting off the pot time. That Battleborn knew that they had to shut their shit down. They're like, all right, we went on, we tried, and it's not working. We have to get out of this. I think that when it came to Shenmue, it was we have a product, it's not that great, but we have to get it the fuck out because we made a promise, and if we don't get to that promise, people are going to be more angry with us, which I disagree with. Always delaying is a better idea. Minus Star Citizen, which has been always delaying now to a point where so much money has come in, it's time to shit or get off the fucking pot.
Right.
My first thought is that there needs to be, and maybe the platforms do it, maybe the law does it, but once your project becomes a certain size in crowdfunding, you need to be held accountable for it. Somebody does. The company does. They need to have some kind of insurance plan, and they need to guarantee returns. Should a product not come out on time, set deadlines and set return policies. It's like this group of people is allowed to ask for their money back, and you will give it to them. Right. And if a certain number asks for their money back, we will revoke all of your funding. Insurance kicks in. We get all our stuff back, and your funding goes away. There has to be some way to guarantee these people something. If not, then I mean, I don't know. When I look at that $250 million for Star Citizen...
And there have been people that have asked for their money back on Star Citizen.
Oh, yeah.
I do believe that they have gotten their money back.
Right, and that's perfectly fine. But, I mean, at what point do you decide that this is a pyramid scheme, not a video game?
Right. And so, yeah, these are all 3 different instances where we're talking about games that either fail or are just too big to fail at this point, right? And so this brings us to the question of the episode, which is, when should the plug be pulled on a video game? When do you just pull the cord and say, this isn't working anymore? What do we do?
Probably about a month after Anthem launched.
I mean, no, I think we should actually talk about Anthem a little bit.
Sure.
I didn't have that planned, but we have to kind of talk about that because that is a game that has said recently that the developers are like, hey, we're going to go back to it. We're going to go back to what the idea was, and we're going to fundamentally recreate the game,
right?
So people can join us later and have another adventure. And we've had that happen before. That happened with Final Fantasy XIV.
Yeah,
they had a game that came out, did not work. People weren't happy. They went back to the drawing board and came out with something better.
They literally nuked the planet.
Yeah,
and honestly, that's something within the story of Anthem that could totally happen. Because the way Anthem's story is, the planet goes, I'm a little bit angry, rips itself apart. And now you have to deal with the way the world's been
You've already written more story for Anthem than is actually in the game.
See, maybe BioWare hires me because I am a brilliant fucking writer, and they aren't.
Yeah.
Sorry to anybody who likes BioWare stories.
All 5 of you that are left.
Right.
Yeah, at this point, they're just losing fans like nothing else.
You're just bleeding them out. You guys are really going to love that new Dragon Age, let me tell you.
Oh, yeah.
Microtransaction age is going to be wonderful. I think that... at some point, the studio needs to realize when it's been too much. Like, in case of Battleborn, they're like, hey, we're not making the revenue that we should. We're keeping this on in an economical way for us for one more year, and that's going to be it. Like, they obviously did the math and said, this is the point where we are not making any more money, and we're going to stop here. In the case of something like Star Citizen... I believe it's going to have to come down to legal answers. I think it's going to have to be, like I said before the show, a class action lawsuit of all these people coming together and said, we gave you tens of thousands of dollars each. You gave us nothing in return. this game is yet to come out, and we've gotten no locked-in thing. You are basically an investor in that company at that point. You've given them so much money that those are essentially shares that you should be buying. And honestly, if they had done the game correctly, they wouldn't have done it through Kickstarter.
We're talking about this game getting $250 million in crowdfunding. Keep in mind, Star Citizen, for the last 3 years, I believe, has had a convention for Star Citizen in which people pay to go to a convention about Star Citizen, a game which has not come out.
A game which has no release date. A game which you can barely play a functioning build of.
Like I get going to like a Dragon Con because D&D, it's out there. You can play that. I see going to like Comicpalooza. It's a convention for geeks to come together and do a thing, right? But like the idea of making a convention for something that doesn't exist is like imaginary friend con.
Yeah.
Where you just hang out with other people's imaginary friends and you have panels about how like mine's purple and you're like, of course it is.
I'm gonna have the coolest ship when it actually comes out, guys.
That's called church.
I mean, it's not like a lot of people have been doing that either.
And I say this as somebody that dropped $20 on Star Citizen because I was
you had
worried.
a copy of the game at some point.
Yeah, at some point.
Well,
I at least bought the single player experience.
Do you though? Do you have a copy of the game at some point?
Theoretically.
I mean, honestly, I really feel that like if this goes on, I since I didn't buy in, you could be the first person to do this. You could be the first person to get a lawyer and then find all the other people who backed and everybody who's angry about it and start a class action lawsuit and then take that $250 million away from them.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing anything
And
with
so
it.
Plitz is coming out in chat right now and saying, like, look, the vision for Star Citizen is very ambitious as it is. But here's the thing. When they started Star Citizen, it started as a single player, like $60 box Wing Commander, not Wing Commander game.
Yeah,
Right.
they stretch gold themselves to death.
They did.
If they had already come out with the single player experience, I'd been like, you know what? I got my $20 worth. I'm good.
I would be super okay.
When the
Yeah.
MMO comes
Yeah.
out, maybe I'll buy into it.
If
But
they
that's
came
the
out with a
thing,
$20
like,
single player story and then and it's out right now and they're like, hey, by the way, Kickstarter for the first person shooter part, who wants to throw $60 on that? And you're like, yeah, I'll buy your fucking game for $60. That's what I buy every game for.
Right.
And then it's like, oh, but now we're adding a racing element. Don't you want to race spaceships? It's worth $60. Sure, I'll fucking throw $60 at it. Then, yes, you're constantly releasing a product and you're actually releasing it and people are getting something out of it.
Right.
Currently, it's going, hey, wouldn't racing be fun?
Theoretically.
I think
And like, well, give us money and maybe that'll happen later.
The problem with all of this is that this is the Kevin Smith story about the giant robot spider all over again. He has a story about how he kept talking to this director or this movie producer, and all he wants is to put a giant robot spider in a video in a movie, and he finally got it with Wild Wild West. What I'm saying is, if you had a brilliant idea for a first-person shooter video game, and you were like, no one will let me make it, and I really want to make this first-person shooter game, it's based on games I played as a kid or older games that I developed that were popular, that some people liked, will you give me $25 million to make this game? And they were like, yeah, here you go. And he's like, cool, I'll get started. And they're like, make it an MMO, here's 10 times your budget. You'd go, what? I mean, I appreciate the money. I
would see that if it was coming
but
from
I
a
don't
giant
know how to
corporation.
do that. I don't know how to make an MMO. I have no idea how to make an MMO. And I barely have the resources just around me, money or not, to find out who does know how to make an MMO and hire them and tell them about my game and have them make my game into an MMO.
In that case, Star Citizen actually bought companies that do things like do the first-person shooter part or do the racing part. They bought companies that had previously done game elements like that. So they said, hey, you worked on a racing game.
We all know
do
how
that
well
now.
it works out when 3 different companies make one video game.
Let's
Dice.
not just spend our whole time here shitting on Star Citizen because we have.
That's its own podcast.
That's its
We
own- literally
like
its own
Star
podcast.
Citizen's a worthless pile of shit.com and just do that as a podcast.
So let's talk about what issues made these particular situations fail. And we're talking about Star Citizen, we're failing up right now.
Yeah.
What are the key components that we thought made these properties fail? So we can break it down by which one, like Battleborn?
Yeah, let's just start with Battleborn. Battleborn
Timing.
Yeah, it came out at the wrong time. You already had Overwatch, which is just started creating Overwatch League at that point, and you could see where it was going into the future. Paladins had a great free-to-play model that a lot of people have mimicked.
Still fairly popular.
Yeah, no, dude, think
Yeah.
about it. Like
People
Fortnite's
still
Battle
play
Pass is
Paladins.
entirely fucking it's entirely Paladins. Paladins created that entire thing that everybody's doing right now. At least that's my memory of the first place I saw it at. And I liked playing Paladins. Paladins was fun. It was I just don't want to.
I don't have $40 for Overwatch.
Yeah. And or was your friends like, hey, I haven't played Overwatch yet. What's it kind of like? And you're like, well, just grab this game and I'll show you a little bit. And if you want to buy Overwatch, cool, we'll get it when it's on sale. Until then, we'll play this.
Yeah.
I did it with a few people, and we had a lot of fun. And I think that was great. Unfortunately, this game came out as it's really similar to these other games, but not similar enough. And also, it was at the same time, the game market was just kind of flooded with other releases.
Yeah.
It wasn't unique enough to stand out on its own. It didn't have, I would say it didn't have a big enough marketing push, but I remember it was marketed. I remember seeing YouTube ads for it and went, cool.
It did look cool.
It never had a hook.
Yeah.
It didn't have that Borderlands 1 catchy fucking song
I think
that everybody hopped onto.
I think it was going to come out at a time when everyone's going to be like, oh, there's not much to play right now. This looks cool. I dig the humor. The characters are interesting. Yeah, let's see how this goes. And it could have been a hit. And not even the Spanish Inquisition expected fucking Overwatch.
Right.
To come out of nowhere. All of my friend Ross is one of the biggest Blizzard fans I've ever met. And when he saw Overwatch before playing it, he fucking laughed at it. He said, this is stupid. They're trying to bastardize the MOBA market. Like, this is way too far. This is a bad stretch. And then we started playing it, and he was like, Jesus Christ, they knocked this out of the fucking park.
So when I first played it in the beta, I didn't like it. I was like, this isn't good as Halo. The hit scan shit doesn't work right. The health bars don't make any sense because all these characters have different health shit. Because I came from a more traditional first-person shooter.
Right, and they were really
and
doing
it was like, this is
new.
something weird and I don't like it. So I just nixed it for a long time.
Yeah.
And until I went back to playing it like 2 years later, I was like, oh, this game makes sense now for what it is. Once it created its own identity.
Right.
Because I was comparing it to other things because it didn't have an identity at that point.
Right.
The closest you really
Battleborn
had
never
was-
had an identity.
The closest you had was Team Fortress at that point.
True.
That was the
Yeah.
closest.
Yeah, and nobody had explained it. It's like to Team Fortress. I was like, I went from Halo to Overwatch and went,
That's exactly
no.
how I got into playing Overwatch. Was I looked at all the characters, their abilities, and I'm like, these are all really weird. I looked at fucking.
You played MOBAs though.
I played MOBAs, but I looked at Torbjorn and I was like, I play the engineer in Team Fortress. This is the engineer in Team
Yep.
Fortress. That's what I'm going to play.
Yep.
And also, if you had played MOBAs, then it makes more sense
Yeah.
having these characters and these class ability things, these different health pools, versus if you come from Halo, which is why did I not kill him? I shot him in the head.
And that was the thing about Battleborn is it really, really borrowed that MOBA style right when things like TI were starting to make in the news for having such enormous crowdfunded prize pools. And they were like, oh, well, we can take that MOBA formula that so many people seem to like with League and with Smite and with Dota 2. And we'll turn that into a fun first-person shooter because we know how to make those, and we'll give it a lot of character, and we'll just really blow the character number up to 11. But
it's game creation through copying. It's the same thing I see in a lot of films that don't do well. Is you have a director who's done some interesting things, but whenever they get a big budget. And they're kind of forced to go into this larger world.
Yeah.
They go, fuck, what am I going to do? And they start copying other directors' styles, but they don't know why that director had that scene function in the first place.
Right.
Or why that character interaction worked well. Or why this shot should be done a certain way. Because they're just copying it, and it fails to function.
Okay,
and
so-
you look at the film and it goes, ooh, this is just a bad amalgam of other things. And that's what you get from Battleborn. It's a bad amalgam of other things because you didn't know it had no true identity.
yeah.
Right. But then we have Shenmue, which was a successful crowdfunding campaign.
Yeah.
Pretty damn successful. To the
and
point
yet-
where a major studio went and backed them. I can't remember who it was.
Yeah, they ended up getting backed. And
I honestly think Shenmue has no fucking excuse. I really don't. It's made by the same people. And it's made to with probably a bigger budget than they had originally. When I think about Dreamcast budgets, I mean, looking at Shenmue and looking at the problem it has, looking at how bad the voice acting is and how none of it really makes sense in Japanese or English as far as the dialogue goes, how stiff the animations are. I mean, they look like Demon Souls animations with how stiff and mechanical people move. And the textures are fine, but they look like they're draped over wooden dolls, not people. They
Right.
never give you the intention, the impression that these are people living in a world.
I have a question for you about that, though. All right, so you played the Shenmue 1 and 2.
One, I never played 2. Because it was bad.
Oh, see, that's the thing is, right? So you said 1 was good,
Yes,
but 2 it just got worse. Like it wasn't nearly as good, well received. I never played 2, so I don't know. I just wasn't into it. I was like, okay, whatever.
Right.
But since I haven't done that, so if 1 was good and it's more of our memory of it was good, and then 2 was just arguably not good and wasn't well received, maybe because it is the same group of people, Shenmue was never good. And our just memory of it makes us think that it was good because the Dreamcast was this new, unique thing. And we're like, oh, this is cool for its time. But in reality, it really wasn't.
Well, half of what made Shenmue really good was that it was novel. It was very, very novel in how procedural everything was, and how like
in the
NPCs,
sense, it is basically like you're playing a novel.
Exactly, yeah. And the way that NPCs would carry on with their day jobs throughout the days, et cetera, et cetera. And I mean, that's not a thing anymore. Everything has that. The Witcher 2 had that, but as we move on, the
Witcher
problem
2 had everything.
Yeah, it did. The problem is once we get to modern Shenmue, we have an incredible open world Japanese slice of life game that is goofy and awesome and fun to play, and people just lose their lives in them, and that's the Yakuza series.
Yeah.
And this game isn't even remotely even close to like being able to reach up to tie that game's shoes.
Mm-hmm. I've heard nothing good about nothing bad about the Yakuza series. I'm going to say I've heard nothing but good about the Yakuza series, because actually multiple people have suggested for me to play it. They're like, you probably will love the shit out of this. I'm like, when I get around.
now to kind of traipse this back, when we talk about Star Citizen, again, you can't really say that it's a failure yet.
True.
But it's a game that hasn't been released, and we're talking since 2012. We're about to close on 2019.
Yeah.
Well, no, we have to look at this at the same time of games that took forever to come out. So you have to also change that over to
Kingdom Hearts.
I would say Duke Nukem Forever, because that took way longer than Kingdom Hearts, and came out, and guess what? Wasn't really that good.
Yeah,
I mean, there was like what, nearly 20 years in development. I mean, the development hell that it was stuck in was for multiple reasons, for multiple other reasons after time. And it finally did come out, and it was not what it was supposed to be because too much hype had lived up to it. That's the way I feel about Half-Life 3, which is also not coming out because I just said Half-Life 3.
Right.
And I just feel like it's like, cool, it's never going to live up to the hype that people have imagined in their head for this fucking long.
True. Which kind of brings me to my next question, though. When do you know it's time to just pull a game and say this game shouldn't be made, or just say fuck it and release it? Because that's an argument.
When do you just pull the trigger and go, fuck it, good enough, good enough?
Did Shenmue 3 just hit a point where they were just like, we're not going to make a profit unless we just release it tomorrow?
Right.
And they're like, fuck it, we do it?
It might be.
They might have got to a point where they're like, we can't delay this without facing backlash, and we can't delay it long enough to make it good.
And Battleborn is just something that kind of faded out of existence.
Yeah,
I remember
for different
I
reasons.
read the news that like Battleborn servers are being closed in 2021, and I was like, fuck, Battleborn servers are still up?
Yeah, I couldn't believe they were still up, to be
Yeah.
honest. I have a easier time believing that there are still servers for like old Tom Clancy, like Splinter Cell games.
Right.
Like Splinter Cell 3
I got
still
on,
has a
like
following.
one of the Splinter Cells in the original Xbox like 6 years after the game came out, and I still found people to play with. I was like, who the fuck are you people? And why? Ghostbusters. Remember the Ghostbusters, the video game that came out? It was the third movie.
It was good.
It was good. I got on there like 5 or 6 years after the game came out and still found people that were trying to go for the achievements in that game.
Wow.
Like that's the level of like, there are people out there that they find one game that they like and they stick with it. I'm one of those people for Destiny. Thankfully, I've got a fuckload of other people that are with me on this one.
Yeah, and you have a lot of shit to do.
So you as a game developer, and again, none of us are game developers, but you as a game developer, when do you look at your game and go, maybe it's time to pull this? Because you can't say
I
that with
look
Star
at it as an
Citizen.
artist person, as a person who does art, and that's what game development is. It's truly just an art idea. Whether you're coding or drawing it, or you're fucking working on the CGI stuff in the background, or mocap, you're an artist, and you're working to release a thing, and every artist in the world is never going to be happy with what they made. You're going to look at it and go, there's the flaw, there's the flaw, there's the flaw. The thing is, I can see the flaws because I created it. You can't see the flaws because you're just looking at it going like, yeah, you drew a tree, dude. And you're like, no, the tree's shit, everything's shit, because you made it. And eventually you have to get to a point within your creative brain to go, fuck it, it's good enough, and I can just deal with the fact that I'm not happy with it. Because someone else will be happy with it, and I don't have. That's great. Because other people's opinion is better that for the art than what my internal opinion that everything is shit is.
Right. Man,
and I think that's what came down with Shenmue. It's like they're like, it's good enough. Let's get it out there because we're not getting another influx of money coming in. We're not going to have a fifth round of money to push this out to save us if we have to develop this for another 9 months, because they are independent developer. They did get some backing from, I can't remember if it was Sony or who was it?
Sony.
I think it was Sony that came in and said, hey, we're gonna give you like $50 million because fuck it.
Yeah.
All of the game, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo do that a lot. They're like, hey, indie company, here, money, finish the fucking project, please. Yeah. Because they want to make money too.
No Man's Sky.
Yeah, for instance. And I think that they just got to a point where they're like, we don't have any more money coming in outside of new sales, and pre-orders have essentially stopped. Let's go ahead.
You're saying
and
you need to look at your financial situation. Your financial situation to dictate whether or not
not
you
always,
should release.
but in certain cases it has to.
Right.
You get to a point where you're like, hey guys, I can't have all of you work for free for 6 months. We just need to release the damn thing.
But see, that's what really bothers me about what's going on with Star Citizen. You said that Star Citizen has made $9 million more since November.
Yeah.
When I look at that, I think this game has no incentive to come out. Zero incentive to come out.
Yeah, no, it's the fat dog on the floor that keeps getting food dropped on it.
Yeah.
The dog has no reason to go outside or to stop eating because there's more food just keeps dropping on the floor for it. And it's just going to keep getting fatter and grosser.
Right, and you're right. At this point, it basically is an item shop, a real money auction house item shop with no game to put the items in. It's like, a game that's like, oh, well, we only do cosmetic-only microtransactions. Here's the store. Oh, where's the game? It'll be out later. But you can buy these cosmetics. But... just buy the cosmetics.
Imagine
but
right
people
now,
are doing it, and they're doing it a lot.
Yeah,
they did it for $9 million in the last month.
Imagine
why would you make a game?
Overwatch.
Why would you
2.
not devote your entire team to making art assets?
Yeah.
For until it collapses.
Honestly, this is the great Activision. Listen to me, fucking Blizzard, please. Overwatch 2. Go ahead and start selling skins now for the characters. They're only available for when the game comes out. You can get all that revenue coming in. You can start selling them in Overwatch, saying in Overwatch 2, you get this character with his skin, pre-sale it, and then just collect that fucking money and get the interest off that shit.
I think Blizzard's trying to avoid that particular look just about now.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea for Blizzard to be avoiding that.
You know what? Honestly,
Blizzard, Jeff is honestly too good of a guy to do that.
I think you're right.
Just turn into the fucking abominable fucking snowman beast that is fucking Blizzard Activision and just go with it.
You can't
just
do that.
Embrace the fucking hell beast that you are. Literally change your fucking logo for Blizzard Activision over to just Diablo being like, I'm the fucking devil, bitch. You knew this.
But as we've previously established on this podcast, Jeff working over at Blizzard really is the Obama of the video game industry.
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
He's just fine. So I know this is a really complicated topic to talk about because we have such three vastly different subjects that do tie into each other. I do want to one last major question, which is how important is it to get the product to market even if it's unfinished? So like Shenmue. Battleborn was kind of a
Battleborn was pretty done.
Well, patch as it goes kind of deal.
I don't think there was anything wrong with Battleborn. So I'm not sure that super applies.
Okay,
and I don't think it was unfinished either. I think it came out when it meant to, but it just picked a bad window.
Mm-hmm. There wasn't one character that was overpowered in Battleborn.
When it comes to games,
it was balanced.
Yeah, well, when it comes to games like Shenmue and games like Star Citizen, I think it all depends on what you're talking about. Is it important to get the product to market even if it's unfinished so that you can make money and provide for your team? Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, probably, maybe. But I would think it was Miyamoto who said that, you only ship it was something like you only ship if a game ships late, it's only late. If it ships early and broken, it's broken forever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's, exactly what we're talking about. And if anyone at all cared about the integrity of Shenmue, they would never have released it like that. Mm-hmm. And if anyone at all cared about the integrity of Anthem, they never would have released it like that. And if anyone at all cared about Star Citizen, they wouldn't be doing half the shit they're doing. If the original guy who just wanted to make single-player Wing Commander again had any say at all over the influx of money he got, none of this would have ever happened. Mm-hmm. But it all came down to money. So if the money is the most important thing, then yeah, get it to market, make whatever money you can, try not to get sued. If you care at all about your game being good, games like we see from software, games like we see most of the time from Hideo Kojima when Konami doesn't fire him halfway through the development of his project.
Or even before it starts.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if he had rushed, fucking Death Stranding and released it 6 months early, broken and shitty. Game, it would have been known as that, not as what it is.
The game is up for Game of the Year.
Yeah, the
Exactly.
game plays really well. Every bit that I've seen, I'm just like, cool. You're walking a lot.
Right.
Like, I mean, but 6 months ago, maybe that wasn't working.
Yeah, you know what?
And
I've never
give it
seen
that amount of time.
I've never seen a Dark Souls game or Bloodborne or Sekiro or any of the From Software games or Platinum games for that matter launch shitty. Because they don't do that. They make good, complete, working games, and then they release them. And it seems like such a novel concept these days. But we just saw it with Star Wars, Force Unleashed. They didn't rush that game to market. It came out as cooked as it was going to be, and it's not a bad game.
Oh, you're talking about the new Star Wars game.
Sorry, yeah. Force Dark...
Force Awake? No, that's
Fallen
the movie.
Order.
Yes.
Fallen Order. Sorry.
That's the problem with Star Wars. It's Star Wars and then another name. And you have to remember all of the different names of all the different
Right. I
Star
still don't
Wars.
remember the name of the Star Wars movie coming out in December.
So there's so much to kind of break down here when you talk about a game failing.
Skywalker.
Even when it's successful, like Star Citizen, can a game like Star Citizen be considered a failure even though it hasn't even come out yet?
I've considered it a failure since like 2017.
And a lot of people feel that way.
again, I have to bring this up again, but if you look at something like Duke Nukem Forever and a couple of other games, like Half-Life 3, they're considered a failure because they've never come out.
Yeah.
They were something that was announced, something that was hyped up, and that has just been never come to fruition.
Yeah. I think
And
was...
in one case, one did and should never have come to fruition.
There was this day when we were at work and we were watching Star Citizen Con on Twitch. And they were showing off a build of the game. And someone just they were like, oh, well, let's teleport a ship broken onto the planet. And they literally just no-clipped it right there onto the ground. And they're like, okay. And then they had the character that you were walk up onto the ship and everyone cheered. And I'm like, what? And then he tried to jump over a broken section of the ship to get to the aft of the ship from on top, and he fell and died. And he tried it 4 more times and fell and died each time. And the audience was just wrapped and cheering. And I'm like, this is obviously broken. This is not working as intended.
That's not supposed the way that's supposed to
And then
work.
at one point, he grabbed an item and everyone cheered. And then the character model floated up into the sky and died. And it was so incredibly broken. And it had been 7 years at that point. Or no, it was 6 years at that point in development. Maybe closer to 7. And at that point, I considered Star Citizen a failure.
Honestly,
because if you're that far into
Yeah.
if you've been developing your game for that long and you have what other people do before they show the game to anyone to get funding, fuck you. Your game's never coming out.
I like to look at this so we're live on Twitch, and we're like, hey, Twitch people, subscribe, do the thing, donate if you want to. By the way, if you want to do those things, do it.
Yeah.
But I'm just looking at it okay, so let's say I spent a year or so just doing Twitch shit, and I'm like, hey, this is the game I developed, and it's literally just a character that walked and died, and I got people giving me $9 million in 1 month for just me doing that. Yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that.
Yep.
And I'm never gonna release the shit because then you're giving people expectations. As long as you can keep expectations stupid high and then drip feed them awful content, apparently Star Citizen fans will fucking love it.
Yep.
It's a very complicated issue, and Star Citizen, again, I've said this multiple times in the podcast, in the history of this podcast, that at the end of the day, no matter what happens with Star Citizen, it's going to be one hell of a book that's going to come out about the development of this game.
There'll be documentaries. There'll be numerous YouTube documentaries.
One of the studios is here in Austin. I'm not sure why we're not just going to do that right now. Let's just go buy a camera. I'll show up at their fucking office and be like, I'm making a documentary because you're wasting a fuckload of money.
Yep.
So knowing when a game is going to fail is a hard thing to pin down because you can never tell when you're in the middle of development, when you've actually got your head kind of buried in the weeds and are working on the project. You don't look at the project you're actively working on and go, this is hot garbage. You're currently always trying to make your product the best, which is why it's so hard to answer the question.
I kind of disagree. I've been making a lot of things that go, this is hot garbage. I need to make it not quite so hot garbage.
Right, but you're generally working with yourself
Yes, I'm working with a flaming pile of hot garbage.
Right. So if you're working with a team, though, usually you're rallying behind your team, and you all think you guys are making.
I mean,
progress.
I would like to think that people aren't piles of shit, but I also know that they are.
Yeah. So it's difficult to answer the question like, oh, well, when should you pull the plug on a game? Obviously, with Battleborn, it probably should have been pulled like a year ago. There weren't enough people to keep those servers up. But you know what?
It's really cool that they are keeping them on for as long as they are to let everybody kind of say goodbye. And I remember whenever they shut down the original Halo servers. This was before the Master Chief Collection.
Yeah.
When they're like, hey, we're shutting down Halo 1. And there were like 5 people that kept that shit running for a month and a half.
Oh, yeah.
After their release, because they were still online. They couldn't leave until everybody got kicked off. You had to leave of your own accord. And they let it stay for a month and a half. And they're like, guys, come the fuck on. You're not even playing the game anymore.
I will send you a copy of Halo 3.
I think they gave him like special awards or something, actually. They gave him like a special title or something on Bungie.net.
Yeah, they're like, you get a special fucking thing because you stuck around more than anybody else in the history of ever would. And it's kind of cool. And I get that for the Battleborn fans. Is it a game that we care about? No. But is it a game that 500 people really care about? Yeah. So
Demon's Souls only shut down pretty recently.
Yeah.
And we're talking about a PS3 game.
Battleborn's developers found that it was economically feasible to keep this running for essentially one more year to make these people happy. And you know what that means? Those people, when the developers of Battleborn come up with their next game, they're going to go, those are fucking good developers. They kept a game that I liked around when it far past it when it should have. I'm immediately buying into it. I'm going to keep with them because they cared about what I care about. In the case of Battleborn, it sucks that the game did not do well and isn't going there, but they are doing good by the fans by keeping around the way they are. As for Shenmue, it's more of the like, you know what? You got the art out there. You did the thing as best as you could. Whenever you realized that you couldn't make it any better for the amount of money you had coming in, and it was just time to release it.
Time to just get it out there.
And you know what? If you got enough people buying in, maybe in 3 months you can get a small team and you can release a patch that makes it better. And it will perfect the thing, and you'll get more people on later. Maybe that's what they're thinking about it. In the case of Star Citizen, how can we nickel and dime you because we're never going to release this because we're making way more money by not making a product.
Right. I feel like as soon as they decide, like, hey, this game is released, and they release it, and everyone goes, none of the shit you said would be in here is in here.
Or works, or is functioning.
Right. Then all of a sudden they're on the hook. As long as they keep making $9 million a month to not release a game, I bet you they're going to keep doing that.
Yeah, I mean, if your team, let's say your team's like, 50 people, and you just got $9 million a month, how much are you paying your team at that point to just not make a game?
Yeah. Probably not very much, considering.
And I feel really bad. Like, if there's any Star Citizen devs that are out there that happen to listen to our show, we're not trying to poo-poo all of you, but we need y'all's perspective because we just don't have it.
Yeah, no, like, if you're developing this and you're like, I give a shit about the game that I'm making, which I'm pretty sure you do.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, I get to work on these really cool concepts. I talked to one of the guys for Star Citizen a couple of years ago, and he's like, no, I just make the way the jets shoot out of the back of all the different ships. It's my job is to design the way fire works. And I was like, that's really cool. Your game's never coming out, though. And he's like, I get to make fire, though. It's like, I get to keep doing the thing that I like.
I go to work every day, and I decide how fire works in space. It's pretty sweet. Is the game coming out? Fuck, dude. I have no idea.
That's not my department. I just make fire look
Someone
cool.
sends me a new ship, and I make it shoot flames.
Yeah. And it's not everybody who works on this is at fault. It's the dude that created Star Commander, who created Star Citizen, who's like, hey, I got this great idea, and just went too grandiose in it, and that's why it's never coming out. And I feel bad for the employees that will lose their jobs because eventually a class action lawsuit will happen because the game is not fucking coming out.
Yeah.
And too many people, I mean, honestly, if people individually have given them $9 million in 1 month, that is too many people that are going to get upset in less than 10 years that a game did not come out and then finally seek legal representation to deal with that fact.
Yeah, imagine at this point if, Half-Life 3 had sold pre-orders when Half-Life 2 came out.
Honestly, that's the one way the game is going to be released, is they're going to have a class action lawsuit saying the game's not coming out. They're going to go launch. It's going to come out broken. And they're like, we gave you every single thing. We gave you the racing. We gave you every single bit. It doesn't fucking work, but we gave it to you, so now you can't sue us, and they keep all the money.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a very complicated issue. Obviously, with the three examples that we provided over the course of the show, they're vastly different in terms of how they interact with their fans, how they interact with the people that have purchased their product and maybe don't like it. This is a complicated issue on when you should actually pull the plug on a failed game, especially when you're failing upward like Star Citizen is. That being said, we'd love to hear your opinions about all the stuff that we've talked about on the show this week. Tony, where can they find us?
Facebook.com/TheSillyNerd. Like, share with your friends. @TheSillyNerd is our Twitter account, and with TheSillyNerd.com is our our email. TheSillyNerd.com is our website. You can donate on there. You can donate on Twitch.tv. We do Twitch about Monday, 7:30 Central. I've been saying this for like 3 years. Eventually, we're going to make an actual streaming schedule for all of us. Maybe we'll do that as our New Year's resolution that we said we were going to do last year.
Yeah.
We super didn't. But either way, donate if you want to fucking donate. Please do. It goes back to making this so we can buy sets and shit to go behind the sets, and I just want to buy lights. I really just want better. I just want lighting, so I'm lit from the side and not from the top, so I don't have this fucking shiny bald fucking head glaring on the fucking screen.
All right, that's everything we have for the show this week. Until next week, for Tony, this is James.
For James, this is Tony.
And I'm Hector.
Adventurers, good night.
And good game. Had to find the trail. I was like, okay, there's the trail. Cool.
So bad. Thank you guys. This was fun.
Thanks, everyone.
What a complicated
Oh my
issue.
God, could the neighbor be playing band practice any fucking louder?
Is that what's happening over there?
Yes. I kept taking the headphones. I'm like, where the fuck?
Yeah, at first I thought it was the TV.
I was like, okay.
And then it was like, there's no way that would be. No.
I took the headphones. I was like, it's not Aaron. I was like, maybe it's Nick. And I would look up here and I would just look over there and go, no, it's not Nick. Because I was going to go upstairs and be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Damn it, Nick. The one day you're here.
That's the reason I took him off and I walked around and I went, it's the neighbors.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are they just practicing outside?
They probably have the garage door open.
Oh, okay.
What, Aaron?
Oh, they weren't outside. They were in the garage.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Their garage is literally right there.
Yeah, that's true.
And we did know before we moved in here that they have bands and that they
fine.
do practice from time to time. And they will cut it off early enough because it's 9:40. Hello.
Yeah.
Is this where my arm lives now? Because that's where we decided to step
It
on.
gets to stay there.
I can't put my arm. Okay. You can use my arm as a jumping post, I guess.
Yep.